Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. No, we do not have the audio fixed on my camera versus computer now. It'll be hopefully fixed tomorrow. We didn't have enough time to get it done today, even though we tried. But nonetheless, we're going to have a great show for you tonight. Paranormal dude, Brent Thomas is here. He literally in his bio, he says, "Call me beautiful Brent." So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk all sorts of paranormal stories from the host of Paranormal Portal podcast. And we're going to have some fun with him tonight. But first, let us say hello to each and every one of you handsome people. Kitty Caddywhack in the gold medal position. Tim Mothman in his goatee with a silver. Race fan taking home the bronze medal tonight. Bar Madison, how you doing? Hippie Deidre and Mama Catherine. I love you, Mama Catherine. I hope you have your wonderful night. I hope you enjoy this show. All right, Robert Lamoth, T-Bone, my man, David Norenberg. Good to see you all here. Frankie B, thanks for coming on in. Rachel Gets It Right. Welcome to SOR Chat. Don't forget to hit subscribe, ring that bell. Mel WD40 is here lubing us up for tonight's show because literally Brent said, I can't talk paranormal unless I'm lubed up. So we are lubing up Brent as we speak to get ready for tonight's show. Mel, you're doing a great job. Joanne, how are you? Joanne will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Scrolling on down, we have Jay Zen. Welcome to SOR Chat. Eternity Eternal, thanks for coming on in. And who's next on our list here? Scrolling on down, little Timmy James. He'll be back for the UFO report coming up in hour 3. And let's see who else we have here. Scrolling on down. There's Keith McCormick. If you wave at him, he'll always wave back. And Flubber Lane. Carol Amerio is here. Carol Amerio will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Scrolling on down, Lee the Bee. Thanks for coming on in. And who else is next here? Stephanie Kenny Blankenship. Just another guy named Harry. Operation Shutdown. Good to have you all here. Lenda, thank you for coming on in. Captain K-Rod, good to see you. Morris Van Buskirk. That's actually Susan on her boyfriend's computer again. Yep, I got you figured out, Susan. Totally do. Let's see here. Scrolling on down. Road Flare. Scabby, good to see you guys. Rock and Rory, thank you for coming on in. And Walter Konchabinsky, good to see you. And let's scroll on down. Jerry Carter. Jerry's making a bunch of memes about me on the Spaced Out Radio Facebook group. They're funny. I'm not going to lie. They're funny. Panda on Fire, nice to see you. BJ Lapierre, author and illustrator. Welcome to SOR Chat. And who else is next here? Let's scroll on down. Queen Peachy Keen, nice to see you, my friend. Jennifer Beveridge, how you doing? Good to see you. Algaray over on Twitch, warming up with 1,400 push-ups in 6 minutes. Arms are jacked for tonight's show. Crystal J, thank you for coming on in. Gorgeous Larry, nice to see you. J Trueseeker. Michelle Eilis, how you doing, beautiful? I got a power slam for you. She's a pro wrestler, by the way. Yeah, hold on. Here we go. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you for joining us as we continue on with Paranormal Talk. Brent Thomas is here from the Paranormal Portal. We're going to have a good time with him here momentarily. We are in roll call on YouTube right now. What in tarnation? How are you? Good to see you. Evan Walters, you're pissing me off that you're back. All right, moving on down. Let's see here. In the studio, Fapster, Barbara Mora, welcome all. I'm Hardcore over on X. Do me a favor, everybody, throw those horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America. It's on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out, Bubblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swing as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Jive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Jive Charities today. You'll find them on our website. We got a Paranormal Power couple of hours coming on up from the Paranormal Podcast or Paranormal Portal Podcast. He's a triple P kind of guy. Beautiful Brent Thomas is going to be here hanging on out with us, and we're going to get into some weird, strange paranormal stories with him. It's going to be a lot of fun. Then in hour number 3, we're skipping Swamp Dweller tonight, not because we want to, but because literally I got into the studio too late and didn't have time to record him. So little Timmy James will be here for a little bit of an extended UFO report. Dave 101 night, weird news of the week coming up as well. So let's get right to it, shall we? All right. Let's learn about Brent Thomas here. Why not? He is the host of the Paranormal Portal podcast and internet radio show. He is known for his respectful and inquisitive interviewing style, focusing on paranormal topics like UFOs, Bigfoot, and ghosts. He's also known for the show's theme song, Feline. Brent's podcast and radio show explore a range of paranormal mysteries, including theories, testimonials, and possibilities. He has been described as having, or just being a damn good guy on the other end of the microphone, because there's a lot of obnoxious people out there. And, well, he's much like me, doesn't tolerate it. He just wants to have fun and talk about these topics that we love. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know what? This is supposed to be fun. This is why I do it. This is why Brent does it. That's why you all listen. You all want to hear something weird, strange, and different. And maybe it coincides with what you've experienced yourself. So let's bring Brent on right now. Brent Thomas, welcome to Spaced Out Radio for the first time, my friend. How are you?
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here, man. Thanks so much for having me on. It's a real honor.
Yeah, man. It's been too long. It's like we've been running parallel paths and we've just never crossed the line.
Yeah, it's really funny because you and I have several friends in common, and you know, I've worked with them, you've worked with them, and somehow yet our paths had never crossed. But I was really thrilled when I got the invite. I was like, oh, cool. You know, this is wonderful. So I hope that at some point in the near future, you'll return the honor and appear on the Portal Live with me.
I will. I will say it publicly. I will. We'll line up a time and we will get that done because, yeah, old Davey's got some weird stories, man. Yeah, I'm not afraid to admit it. I'm a weirdo.
It's kind of part and parcel for doing this stuff, though, isn't it?
Yeah. You know what, though? How much fun do you have with this? I mean, because you've been doing this a long time now, not only hosting, but you're an investigator as well. You know, I live for this. Every day I think about our topics of discussion, man. And there isn't a day that goes by that I'm not thinking about Bigfoot or UFOs or ghosts. How about you?
Oh, absolutely. I eat and breathe this stuff. And it sounds kind of cliche, but honestly, I got into this because it was truly a passion of mine before it was a profession of mine. Like, this is something that I've lived. I've had several of my own experiences, which I'm sure we'll get into several of those tonight, but I love doing this. And it's the old adage, right? They say you find something you love doing, you'll never work a day in your life. And although I spend, 12, 14 hours a day doing this, I don't feel like I'm working. It's just, I love doing it. I love going down these rabbit holes, and I love the journey of it, for lack of a better term, right?
Out of everything that you have heard from everybody that you have talked to over the years, what's a story or an event that sticks out to you? We all have that one.
Yeah. Okay. So, and this is very true. This isn't me just being politically correct or whatever. Like, every story that somebody brings me they're all my favorites, because these people are encountering and experiencing the impossible, things that we've traditionally told can't happen. It's just not possible that your cereal bowl moved 6 inches. Now, is that a Hollywood event? No. But there is one story, Dave, that really cooked my bacon. And it was one that I was really looking for. And finally, the story found me. And I as you know, I'm sure through the years of doing this show, you like to hit a lot of different topic points. But there was one topic I had always been fascinated with, but could never find any real material to go through to do the show. And that was about vampires. And
Right.
Of course, we all have this real Hollywood idea of vampires, thanks to Hollywood, but it's based on something. There's some foundation where this whole concept started. And so it is possible that it's built on a truth. I always believed that. But every time I'd look into it and research it, all I would find was stories into antiquity from the 18, 17, 1600s. And, these, I don't know, folklorish tales of, people emerging from their graves and, making people sick and cursing entire villages. So they'd bury them with cages and, cut off their corpse head and stuff. Or the only other thing I found was this more modern counterculture of, vampires, where it's kind of like a goth movement where people dress up in dark and I got the glue on fangs and they'll drink blood. I mean, they'll do the whole 9 yards, but it's not really the real thing, not what I was looking for. And it wasn't until suddenly I got an email, and the guy was like, look, I'm not going to try to explain. I can't tell you what happened to me. I'm not going to try to explain what I think it is. I'm just going to tell you the story and you tell me. So he emailed me the story, and I'm like, oh my God, this sounds like it. This sounds like it. And so I wrote him back and I said, I said, it's going to sound bizarre, but it sounds like you encountered what most people refer to as a vampire. And he's like, exactly. So I had him on the podcast, and it was, I think, season 3, I think episode 46. It was a vampire show, and I interviewed him, and his story blew me away. And it started out, he actually had 2 encounters in his lifetime of potentially meeting a vampire, and not the same one. But do you want to hear the stories in the paraphrase?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay, we'll start here. So he was a young boy, about 4 years old, and he was living in this, I think it was kind of a trailer house thing with his mom and dad. And they lived in this lot, and there was about 80 yards, and then there was a tree line, and there was a fence over next to a playground and another part. But he, as a young boy, he loved to go up and sit on the kitchen sink and look out the window and then play games with his mom, who would be coming back and forth doing her thing. And he was sitting there, and he said he looked over at the tree line, which is about 80 yards away again, and there was a figure moving there. And he was like, it was really odd. It didn't move normally. But he said, I was really kind of freaked out about it because I never saw anybody back there. All the time I would go sit on this sink, I never saw anybody. Excuse me. And he said, I was watching it, And then he said, I turned my head and said, "Hey, Mom, you should come and see this." And then I looked back, and in the moment, the time that it took for him to do that, this figure was suddenly at the window, like with his face right up to the glass. And he said it looked like a black guy, like an older black guy that was pudgy. And that movement, even at 4-year-old, didn't make sense to him because this is a portly guy. But he said he looked kind of paler or like whitewashed and almost had a purple tone to him. And his lips were all blue, and his eyes, he said his eyes were absolutely intense. And he was looking at him, and he said the eyes didn't glow, but they had almost a light red glow to them. So like they weren't like on fire, but he said, and it was just looking at him sitting on that sink. And he said it was like it was starving because it was looking at him and just trembling, like it was just trembling. And he was sitting there, and he said the weird thing was, as a 4-year-old child, I should have been terrified. But he said I had this real calming feeling, like, no, there's nothing to worry about. And he said, and I was looking at it, kind of mesmerized. And he said, and then I realized my hand was reaching towards the window latch slowly. And he's like, "Mom, come here." And, because he snapped out of it and said, "Mom, come here." And his mom came around the corner, and he looked back as she was coming around the corner. The thing was now 80 yards away, jumped over the fence. So in that time, and he said it moved so fast, it was like it had trailers behind it. And that was his first experience. And I was like, oh my God. So that was the one for me, Dave, that really, and there's another encounter that he has later on in life as an adult, but that's the one that really was like, oh my God. So
I think for me, if I could actually interview anyone, everybody says, I'd like to interview this person or that person or Bob Lazar or, somebody famous about it. Outside of Sammy Hagar, that's my dream interview because I would love to talk to him about his alien encounters.
Yeah. Yes. Sammy sounds like a neat guy, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I would absolutely love and adore to interview somebody who claims to be immortal.
Ooh, wow.
Because I believe there are immortals walking around here. Because if we have time travelers here, we will have immortals here as well.
Yeah.
And I think out there somewhere there's an immortal or two walking around, and I would love to hear their stories. Now, how am I going to be able to prove it? Probably not. But that's the nighttime energy of radio that we do.
Yeah.
Why not?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, if you're immortal, you're probably sitting and listening to nighttime radio, right? But okay, cat's out of the bag, Dave. Today's your lucky day. It's me, the immortal, beautiful.
Well, that's nice. That's nice. I appreciate that. I really do appreciate that. What do you love about this subject? Like, what really gets you going? What makes your heart pump?
You know what it really is? The foundation for me personally isn't one topic or the other, because I think that they're all incredibly amazing in their own way. And what I love about all of them, though, is that it's really kind of a check mark on our hubris. Like there's a concept in our modern thinking that we got this solved. This is all solved. It's all on a shelf. It's all labeled. Our scientists can tell us all about it. And yet the cereal bowl moves and nobody moved it. People see full-bodied apparitions. They see craft in the sky that do impossible things that defy our understanding of physics. And there's so many things about this that remind us we got a lot to learn. Like, I think maybe if there was a divine purpose for all of this, maybe it could be that you guys are too arrogant. There's a lot to learn, and I'm going to, because it demonstrates mechanics of our reality that we don't understand at all. Like that, and I say this all the time, and I'm sure it sounds really redundant, and I apologize for anybody that's listened to me interviewed before, but I couldn't be more sincere in that, we're conditioned to believe that reality is this really rigid structure. It's this concrete framework that we live in, and there's these absolute rules that have to be obeyed, and yet this stuff happens, and it goes against all of the grain of that, and it shows us that reality isn't rigid. It's flexible and fluid, and it's dynamic. And when we witness these events, it really, really, to me, demonstrates that we have a lot to learn, you know?
I think it's something that, you know, it allows us to open up our minds to the impossible.
Right.
You know, when you have that experience that what your eyes are seeing, your brain can't comprehend,
Right.
you know there's something really awesome about that. Even though it's scaring the daylights out of you and it may never happen again, those brief seconds where you have been turned into mush because you can't figure out, am I really seeing that Bigfoot? Am I really seeing that Dogman or alien or ghost?
Right.
Did that ghost just go through me? Like you said, did that cereal bowl just move? To me, it's that thrill of the chase.
Yes.
And the more you do it, the more clues you learn that you never picked up. Example, in our Sasquatch area that we go to, all of a sudden, and I've heard it for years, never put two and two together until last year, where all of a sudden you hear the thud, thud on the ground, like two heavy footsteps.
Mhm.
Never put it together before, heard it all around, because in my area, we have black bears, we have grizzly bears, there's 1,500-pound moose running around. You think of them first.
Right.
But then we had, last year, my UFO guy, Tim, he had a sighting, him and his wife at our spot after
Oh,
the thud, thud. And that's where we put it together that all of a sudden, that's when they're around.
isn't that cool? So do you think that's them like dropping out of a tree, or do you think that could be, I don't know where you're at with the whole, transdimensional Bigfoot idea, like they can phase in or out. But what do you think the thuds are indicating?
I think it's just a signal that we're here.
Okay. Kind of like tree knocks then. Okay.
Yeah, in our area, we don't get a lot of tree knocks. We
Oh,
get the odd one, like literally you'll hear bang, not a multitude of them. You'll get like one bang. Now, the weirdest thing we had at that spot was in 2022, 4 of us had a sighting of a 10-footer at night.
oof.
He was about 80 yards away, and how we know he was 10 feet was because we were able to actually see in the moonlight, like it was a full moon night, pure, like no clouds, no nothing. One of these type of nights where the moon is just lighting everything up. It's funny because my buddy Little Marky Spender, he's deaf as anything,
Uh-huh.
but he's the one who heard this. And we put the flashlights up, and there he was in the classic Sasquatch stance. To this day, we do not know how he left. He just vanished. And then about 15 minutes later, his brother, Ric Flair, is way off in the distance going, woo! And he did that twice,
Oh
right?
my God.
Yeah.
Oh,
And, for a lot of skeptics out there, Brent, they'll sit there and they'll say, well, that could have been a human. That could have been anybody. But unless you know my area, where when you're 30 miles into the forest, there ain't anybody around.
right. So
You know,
just waiting out there,
nobody
waiting to help
around.
somebody. Yeah.
Nobody's running around in my area. It's like running around in my area is like running around in Texas. Everybody's got a gun.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And nobody's going to be stupid enough to take that chance at 30 miles out in the forest to put on a 10-foot Sasquatch suit.
No, that's true. I'm in the north tip of Idaho, and it's kind of the same thing. It's like, yeah, you don't trespass out here. You don't go on the marked properties. No.
You're actually pretty close to me then if you're in Idaho.
Yeah, I'm up in a town called Sandpoint.
Are you in the northern part?
Yeah, just a little north of Coeur d'Alene. Yeah.
Oh, dude, you're just a border hop and an 8-hour drive away from me.
Oh, sweet. We're neighbors.
Pretty much.
That's
Pretty
awesome.
much.
Yeah.
But what do you prefer? You call your podcast paranormal. Now, most people, when they would hear the word paranormal, they think ghosts. You use it as kind of an overall umbrella term.
Yeah.
What's your favorite?
Well, see, that's the thing. I don't know if I have a favorite. I'm probably the most familiar with hauntings and ghostly stuff because I've had a bunch of experiences personally, and I do some research as well. So it's the one that I think I'm most familiar with, but I've also seen a UFO, and I've also had what I believe is a close encounter with a Bigfoot or something of the like, and I've experienced strange phenomena. But to me, you're right. People hear paranormal and think, oh, ghost hauntings. But paranormal by definition just means not normal, which is all of this stuff. And I really adore all of it, honestly. But I do think as far as familiarity goes, and it's not that I don't know about these other things. Like I've been reading and researching Sasquatch stuff for years. So I would never say that I'm a field researcher, though. I've only gone out on one expedition just a couple of years ago, and that was just one overnight. So I did investigate a structure near here, though, and that was a dome-like structure. I'll send you the pictures, Dave, sometime, and you can look at these pictures. But I think probably for as far as familiarity, definitely the spiritual stuff, because I've dealt with that a ton of times in my life. But I have also got my toes wet with a lot of the other stuff as well.
What's the one thing you'd never want to experience in this field? As we got about 2.5 minutes.
Okay, so I don't think I'd want to get up close and personal with a dog, man. I don't think I want that experience. I do not want to have that etched into my memories for the rest of my life. But I'll tell you the other one, as far as cryptids go, I don't want to see one of those pale crawlers. I don't know what it is about those damn things, Dave, but they just freak me out. There's something just on a primal, visceral level with me that when I think of those things, I'm just like, ugh. So it's those two for me.
For me, definitely number one is Dogman.
Yeah.
I do not want to see that thing. And you know what the weird part about it is? I know I'm going to run into one. I know it's going to happen. And when I come on your show, I'm going to tell you about this area that I found. Inverted. Well, I'm not taking credit for it. That my friend Mark, Merle, and myself started investigating in 2018. I'm not and I want you to know, Brent, I'm not an investigator. I'm an enthusiast. I'm an enthusiast and an experiencer. And I am going to actually be going on a 2 to 3 year adventure into the backwoods here every Saturday from the time the snow melts until the time the snow comes back. Oh. So it's probably got me there from May until November. And this area, and I will fill you in, we have had everything from Sasquatch encounters to ghostly activity to UFOs to aliens, everything about it. And this place, when I go out on this adventure starting next month, it is going to be something where I am completely allowing the phenomena to dictate what I do. I'm not pushing the limits. I'm allowing them. And we'll talk about it on your show because my audience is pretty sick of me yapping about it. But I will tell you this, dude. I am scared.
I would be too.
Completely scared.
Oof. Man, you're cut from a different metal than me, Dave.
Oh, no. I just carry a lot of toilet paper with me. And here's the screwed up part. About 2 weeks ago, the phenomena, you know how it gives you images in your head? Mm-hmm. It was showing me that there's going to be a Dogman there. Oof. Yeah. All right. From the Paranormal Portal podcast, Brent Thomas is here. When we return, we're going to get into some of his spookier stories that he has encountered from his listeners, from his show, and even personally. This is Spaced Out Radio. We'll be right back right after this. I just have to time everything out. So it's all good. Good start, my man.
Yeah, it's fun. It's neat to, you know, you know what it feels like? It feels like we're a couple of grandmothers that have recipe boxes full of recipes, and, and we're come together and we're whipping them out on the table like, hey, Dave, check out this recipe. So I like it. It's like trading jabs here. It's great.
Oh, dude, we're gonna have, dude. You know, we should just say hell with hour 3 that I got planned, and we just go 3 hours and BS our way through it.
I'm with you. Whatever you want to do, brother. I'm with you.
Whatever. Let's just run with it, man.
Okay.
Let's have one of those nights where we just run with it. I don't do those enough.
Well, let's do it tonight.
Yeah. Let's yeah, man. If you ever want to come up, take a drive up.
Yeah.
I would take you out to this spot.
Ooh, God. That sounds awesome.
Dude, it would scare the living daylights out of you.
It scares me now, and I'm in Idaho. It sounds intense though, brother. Really intense.
You know what? The issue is with that place, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like like last year, for instance, we camped there. Against my will, we camped there. My team camped there for 2 nights.
Oh God!
Not a thing happened.
Oof.
We go back home to charge up our batteries and all have a nap and get a shower in. We go back there that 3rd evening.
Yeah.
And all hell broke loose.
Jeez.
Dude, we're being followed by a Sasquatch. You can't see it, but it is paralleling us on this trail through the trees. And when we stop, it stops. And then right before this happened, we got caught in a torrential rainstorm.
Yeah.
Okay, where thankfully we were under a tent with all of our gear, but we got caught in a rainstorm where dude, the rain was so hard you could not even see my tire tracks.
Oh God. Wow.
Okay, one of those types of rains.
Yeah.
And so when the rain stopped, we get this feeling, we go down this trail and we're starting to feel like something's following us. Look down, right in the mud, fresh 17-inch track.
Oh God.
Right. So we keep going. We can hear it. And when we stop, it stops. And then the trail kind of bends this way. And at the bend, it stopped. And we go this way. And then my buddy Mark is trying to lure a black bear out because we can hear a bear in the trees. And Mark's sitting there trying to call this thing like it's a freaking puppy. Come on, bear. Come on out. Say hi. Because it would have looked good on camera because we were filming everything.
Sure.
Would have looked good on camera. Bear didn't want to come play. Probably saw Mark, and that's the reason why. Right? Mark's not attractive, and I'm saying that because he's listening right now. But we go back, and now whatever was following us, we can now feel that it's left that area but moved behind our base camp.
Oh God.
So we go back to our base camp and we sit down and we're like, okay, well, we think things are going to go on. This is what we're going to try and capture. Mark being our armed guard out there, because you have to have an armed guard out there because of the wild animals. He's doing his do, walking around. He looks down and there is now another fresh 17-inch track right 10 feet from our tent.
Oh,
that was not there before.
Yeah, that's nightmare fuel.
And so we follow the trail. And we find this staff leaning against a tree.
Oh.
This 8-foot staff. And at the bottom of it, it was all twisted and turned.
Yeah.
And it was all wet, like dirt and mud on it. But the staff itself was dry.
Oh, no. Wow.
And yet everything, you got to realize everything is soaking wet.
Right.
And this thing is now dry. And the fucked up part about it, pardon my language, okay, we walked that trail over that day and we filmed that trail 6 or 7 times. And that staff was never there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's epic.
Yeah. Dude, this place is messed.
Yeah.
Oh, Rachel is saying, did you guys just become best friends? Yep.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. All right, we're coming back in 23 seconds. Hi, Kathy Evans. Thank you to T-Bone for our lone super chat. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you very, very much. The chat room is moving, and I'll try and say hello to everybody here. And here we go in 3 seconds. Second half hour, Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning us in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. I want to remind all of you that our archives are always free. Why are they free? Because I'm allowed to. I'm the owner of this big show, and I want to keep them free. So, that's what they are. It's my choice. YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. From the Paranormal Portal Podcast, I got to say that right. From the Paranormal Portal Podcast, Brent Thomas is here. We're having a great time and talking about all things weird and strange. Brent, thank you so much for being here tonight. What a pleasure to have you on the show.
Oh, the thrill is all mine, brother. It's been a great talk. And the first half hour was like a blink and we were done. So I know this is going to fly. I know, right? It's like a time anomaly. It's crazy, but that just means it's great conversation.
That's very true. I want to ask you this, man, because I asked you earlier, what scares you? What don't you want to get into? And that's Dogman.
Uh-huh.
Okay. But out of all the stories you have heard over the years, okay, out of all the encounters you have had, what is something that either made you laugh or think, wow, that is no way that could be real?
Oh my God. Wow. That's a tough one because there's so many, even from my own personal experiences, there's so many that have made me just laugh out loud. And it's probably going to sound stupid, but this is the God's honest truth. So I've never been scratched ever. And this is just recent. This is maybe a month and a half ago. And I'd never been scratched. And I've heard people talk about it and what it feels like and stuff. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. Well, I was recording podcast episodes one Monday and I got done with it. One of them was talking to Tommy Cullum of the Let's Get Freaky podcast. He was my guest and we were talking and I was telling the story about this house and we've had a lot of activity at this house, my wife and I and my young child. There's a lot of weirdness that's happened here. We just rent here. We don't own it. But to give you a little bit of backstory here, like I said, we had a lot of activity here. And I ended up at one point interviewing the neighbor lady who is a practicing witch. And she's not the neighbor, but she grew up there. Her mom still lives there. She's from Portland, but I was talking to her. She came over into the studio here and I was talking to her just prior to going live on my show. And she goes, how do you like living here? And I said, well, it's a pretty interesting place. If a lot of strange stuff happens around here. She goes, well, you know what happened here, don't you? And I was like, no, I don't know what happened here. Do tell. So she tells me the story, and it's actually kind of a heartbreaker, but it did help to understand what was going on in this house. Because when you're dealing with stuff, you never really know. I mean, whether you're dealing with something mischievous, something horrible, any of the above. So what she told me was she was in high school, and in this house was a 14-year-old boy that she knew of from school. She wasn't friends with him, but she knew of him. Well, apparently this kid suffered from depression or something. And unfortunately, and it's a tragic story, but I guess he ate a shotgun upstairs and ended his journey. But it was like, suddenly I had, an understanding at least of maybe some of what was going on here. And so that I think helped because I could look at it more compassionately and be like, okay, maybe it's just somebody acting out that's stuck and dealing with all this stuff. So there's that. But I got done telling Tommy this, And suddenly I felt like cold on this side of my body as I was sitting here in the studio. Like, wow, it's ice cold here. And then I suddenly had this like burning sensation on my neck. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And I went like this with my hand, but I felt like a ridge. And I'm tracing it with my finger, and it goes all the way from my ear down to underneath my jaw. And I'm like, oh my God, what is that? And I got done with that, and I went and talked to Mrs. Portal, and I'm like, what's going on with my neck? I feel this bump here, this long bump. And she goes, oh, and then she goes, oh, and she pulls down my collar, and it turns out I had scratches all over my shoulder and neck. And I took pictures of them and put them up on Facebook and stuff, and got some feedback from people there and all of that. But honest to God, as soon as she told me I got scratched, I was laughing hysterically. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's what that is. I started laughing. And then sure enough, it kind of started out as just a warm impression, but then it became kind of like a rope burn, like a skinny little string burn, all these string burns around my neck. And I finally understood what getting scratched was. So that was, and it shouldn't probably crack me up, but it was just made me laugh. I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. There's something wrong with me, Dave. I'm just going to say it.
Hey, man, whatever works. I'm not here to judge. That's for sure.
Well, thanks.
When you were around ghosts, you've experienced enough now. Do you know? Can you tell when you walk into a room now if it's haunted?
I can tell that I get really sensitive to the energy, and I don't always know whether it's an active energy or just an impression. I just feel some places are just charged, and you can feel it when you walk into them. There's like this static in the air. It's like this energy or whatever, but I'm not one of those, sensitives that go, oh, well, there's a young lady spirit that hangs out over in the closet there. I can't do anything like that. But I do feel that I'm sensitive to the presence of energies, which could be spiritual, active, haunted energies, or they could just be some serious built up psychic impressions. And, so yeah, I think by virtue of anybody looking into this stuff for a long enough time, you do develop a sensitivity to that. Like you can tell when something's in the air, it's like, oh, this is going to be an interesting night. And sometimes you're even right. Sometimes you're not, but I think you do. You get sensitized to it after a while.
The reason why I'm asking is, I often get asked, what don't I believe in? So what does Brent Thomas not believe in? When you look at these fields and you hear everything from Sasquatch are people too and need voting rights, to all aliens are bad, all aliens are peace, love, and light, and they want to, give us all magical powers. I mean, what don't you believe in? What's hard for you to grasp? What
I have the biggest issue with, there's several things actually in all of this that I have an issue with, and it's not that I'm trying to position myself as an arbiter of truth. Like, well, if I don't believe that, then it can't be possible. What I don't like though is that there's a confirmation bias in all of this, in so many people that's and you look on any Facebook group and you see it, it's on full display. It's like, oh, look at the orbs. You're surrounded by loved ones. I can see it, and it could just be dust orbs or whatever. I mean, there's what I'm trying to get at is that it's like people come at this with a confirmation bias, like they want it to be true. And so it doesn't matter what somebody says, they subscribe to it. Case in point, this one, just ran into this other day, and it was on Facebook, and it was this one guy, and I'm going to call him out because like I said, I try to avoid all the drama, but I'm kind of putting myself in the middle of this one because this guy, it kind of pisses me off. He calls himself the Bigfoot expert, which already is like, what? But and I'd never heard of this guy before, but somehow it popped up on my feed. And here is this primate hand, and it's in perfect focus. It's just this perfect hand, it looks like this. And it's like, this is from my secret archives. This is a real picture. This is not AI. I'm like, what? So in about 30 seconds, I did a reverse image search online, And I found a link to that actual picture that wasn't in his Bigfoot archives. It was from Ricky Gervais had posted that image on his on a Reddit thread in a message to his friend Carl, and it says the caption on the picture is close up of a chimpanzee hand, but that's already tragic enough that this guy's taking a chimpanzee hand and going, here's a Bigfoot hand. It's from my secret archives. I'm the expert. You should listen to me. Because, I guess the guy sells expeditions into Bigfoot territory and all kinds of other stuff. But the bigger problem I had was when I was looking through the comments and there were so many people like, oh, that picture's so clear. I can't believe that. That's amazing. Can you show us more of these pictures? And there were so many people that were like, wow, I can't believe you have that picture. That's amazing. So many people were just ready to just buy into that hook, line, and sinker. And I was just thinking, I think it's important to address this stuff through the eyes of a skeptic. And I think we all have to maintain that level of logic and challenge and prove these things, or at least substantiate them somehow. And I don't know, maybe I'm asking too much, Dave. Maybe I'm too idealistic about this, but I think that there's so many ideas in this melting pot, like pictures of hedges with red circles all over it, showing you the Bigfoot everywhere, and it's like, those pareidolia leaves, probably. I'm not saying it's impossible that they could hide that well or whatever, but you can't just take pictures of foliage and say that that's Bigfoot and a family of Bigfoots lurking there. But for every one of those, there's a whole host of people messaging underneath going, yeah, I can see that. That's crazy. And you missed the one over here. And then they'll tell them more Bigfoots that are in their picture. And it's like, oh,
yeah.
So,
and a game of Minecraft looks clearer than these photos that they are using.
Yeah, I know. And maybe I'm being too hard on them. And because maybe having an interest at all is a good thing. But yeah. I just think it's important to, if it's going to be presented as evidence, it should look like evidence, and it should be substantiatable. I don't know if that's weird, but it is now.
I can say this. I have a lot of pet peeves.
Okay.
A lot of pet peeves. I hate UAP.
Me too.
Yeah. Okay. I hate NHI. One thing that I have learned is that any group that uses the word Squatch, their research is not worth looking into, because there is going to be a lot of bias in whatever they do.
Sure.
Little things like that drive me nuts on the vocabulary portion of everything. But I think what drives me nuts the most is that a lot of people don't think that people who are experienced are their own worst skeptics. And, I realize there's a lot of people who blindly believe, and blind faith that everything that happens is a Sasquatch or an alien coming down or whatever. I know there's those people out there, but the majority of experiencers out there who never asked for any of this to happen, myself included, we are our own worst skeptics. We're trying to debunk absolutely everything. But when it happens over and over again, you learn what is real and what is not real. Right. If that makes sense. And there's too many armchair quarterbacks out there and armchair skeptics who are, who are living in some city or suburb who, their idea of a forest is going down to the local park and playing hide and seek with their kid in the trees.
Sure.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? They've never been 30 miles into the forest. They've never been, a 2-hour drive into the forest. They've never seen a bear in the wild or a mountain lion or whatever it may be. Right. Those are the people that really bug me. Like when I had my alien encounter, I remember I was on one show where I was talking about my alien encounter with a lady named Samantha Mowat. And this guy in the chat room is like, this is BS, didn't happen. And I asked him, I said, were you there?
Right. Yeah.
Were you there? Because do you know where my hometown was? Have you ever been on that street? Do you know what farm we're talking about? Were you in the trees? Which tree were you hiding behind? The dogs didn't spot you.
Yeah.
So where were you? You know, and he,
Yeah.
well, you know, I don't mean it that way. It's just hard to fathom. Well, don't be a jerk about it.
Yeah.
You think
No.
I wanted that to happen?
Right.
Right. And I think that's what bugs me.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree too. I mean, it's for me, I'll tell you what, Dave, when I started doing the shows, I made it a real intentional point not to talk about my own experiences, because I was like, well, isn't that, does that seem like it would be maybe disingenuous to people? Like, oh, you have a paranormal show and oh, you've got all these experiences. Of course you do. But over time, I started to share my stories little by little. And I was so impressed with the feedback of people, because I think they had come to know me as, you know, part of my audience for a while. And I hope understood that I have integrity, but everybody was very accepting of it. And so I started sharing more and more and more. And I did find that, you know, by virtue of me sharing these things, it did build maybe a more of a sense of empathy with those people who were coming on the show to share their experiences. Like, they weren't just talking to a clinician or somebody that had just an academic interest. They were talking to an experiencer as well. And I think it really helps to create a commonality and to create a bond of sorts, you know, that they can understand, you know, what they're talking about because you've seen weird things.
I spoke last year at this Bigfoot conference here in British Columbia. Great event. Fantastic event. It was on First Nations grounds.
Oh, cool.
And they had a bunch of booths of like First Nations art where they had like carved out or sewn Sasquatch like carvings and Sasquatch patches and beads and all of this. Just incredible. And the organizer brought in a bunch of scientific skeptics. So you have all of these First Nations people around in the booths who are like, this creature's interdimensional. I've seen one disappear, because I want to hear their stories. I don't care about the guys on the stage.
Yeah.
I want to hear their stories. And this one guy, the last speaker on day one, he was just Mr. Skeptic.
Oh.
You know, putting down the experiencer, putting down the woo part, making fun of it. So I'm the second speaker on Sunday, and I get up there and I look right at him, and I said, to the public, don't ever believe anyone who thinks they know what this is, because the truth of the matter is we don't know.
Yes.
Until we get a body, we don't know. It could be interdimensional. It could be blood and guts.
Yep.
It could be anything. But we don't have a body.
Right.
And therefore we don't know. And he just glared at me. That man would not speak to me the entire conference. We were even out for dinner, and he would, a bunch of us, and he would not speak to me. And I was just like, you jerk. You jerk.
Yeah.
You know, so it felt good to call him out. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. You know, anybody that uses the term Bigfoot expert or expert in their name or claims to be an expert, that's got to be a real big red flag right up front, because nobody knows any of this stuff. I mean, the only thing that I will say, though, that I think that at least, and this is something I've been speaking about more recently, and I did present at a conference this last year talking about this, but I think a lot of times people dismiss firsthand reports, people that witness reports. They dismiss them because, well, you know, witnesses aren't reliable and witnesses are this or witnesses are that. But we don't have anything other than prints, some scat samples, some hair. But we do have, the one thing we have a ton of is these anecdotal evidences, these anecdotal reports. And I think that it's important to listen to them, especially like even the First Nations, who has histories going back, you know, maybe thousands of years with these things, living in community with these things to some measure. And there's legends of them being trading partners. And there's also the other side of it, where there's battles and wars fought between them. But these reports, these stories, these experiences, I think are the one snapshot that we have. And the beauty of it is that there's enough reports that have been gathered through time, and more are coming in all the time, but you can start to ascertain commonalities. You can start to examine and see patterns and see glimpses into maybe what these things are thinking, because when you compare across a whole body of reports, you start to notice that there's certain things that seem to stick out in several stories. And it also is a great tool to help as maybe a barometer of sorts to weigh news stories. If they come in with a whole different take on things than everything you've ever heard, then maybe that's a red flag. I mean, it's not that you can necessarily dismiss it out of hand, but it's, for me, whenever somebody comes in and they're talking a whole different game than anything I've ever heard, it's like, okay, where's this going? Let's go for the ride. But I think that it becomes almost like a profiler, like the FBI uses profilers. Well, they look at behavior patterns. They look at established facts and stories and research, and they try to build behavior profiles. And I think what these anecdotal stories are able to do is give us the ability to do profiles perhaps on the Sasquatch.
Absolutely.
And learn how to research them better,
And we have to get over the fact that while there is evidence, there is no proof.
Yes.
We have no proof of UFOs. We have no proof of non-human intelligence. We have no proof of Bigfoot. We have evidence. We have anecdotal stories. People have sightings.
Yes.
Okay. You can't trust a video anymore due to AI. That's thrown in the garbage. Yep. You can't trust audio anymore because that's very easy to edit. Mm-hmm. So the importance of the anecdotal stories is very high again, where it was dropped right down to the bottom of the totem pole of evidence. And but you're right, and I say this in a different way to my audience. Those anecdotal stories each have a piece of the puzzle.
Yes.
And if I'm experiencing this in British Columbia, you're in Idaho, and we're having the same experience happen with a UFO or a ghost or a Sasquatch, that's a pattern. Patterns equate to science.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
But these people who are, the flesh and blooders and everybody who absolutely refuse to believe in any of the woo aspect of it all, as my confidant scientist, Science Bob, likes to say, it isn't science if you're giving an opinion.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Yeah, that's a great take.
Opinion is not science. And I think we get lost in that because we think that if we go down the road of the woo, that all of a sudden our credibility is out the window.
Right. Yep.
You notice that too?
Yeah, I absolutely. And the thing is I agree with you. I again, I don't ever want to put myself as an arbiter of truth. Like, well, I've got to agree with it for this to be valid. I recognize fully and completely, I don't know what the hell any of this stuff is. But I think what's fair to say is, like, when we talk about perhaps an interdimensional Bigfoot or supernatural Bigfoot stories and stuff, I'm not saying they couldn't be real. I'm just, the problem I have is trying to wrap my head around it, So I openly acknowledge that any of this is possible, because I think you have to. For anything to be truly scientific, you have to acknowledge all possibilities until you can categorically rule them out through scientific method. And we can't rule out that they're not transdimensional. We can't rule out that they don't emerge from portals or they go insubstantial or can cloak or any of that stuff, because we can't. So it still has to be on the board. But what I will admit is that it's hard for me to process. I don't know how that can be, how that can happen. And so, I mean, I do have a paradigm myself, and I guess that's one of the stumbling blocks, right?
Well, you know what? It's one of the things where we can sit here and say, from our outsider's perspective, what we're seeing from the viewpoint of an outsider looking in as the people who ask the questions. And there's a lot of similarities that you're noticing and that I'm noticing, and I think we're on the same page. And I really hope our audience can take note of that, because you have a different crowd than I do. Yeah. Sure, we have some of the same listeners, but there's a lot more that are different. And if we can get that message to them, the better it is. Paranormal Stories with Brent Thomas from the Paranormal Portal Podcast coming up right after this. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, we are clear. Brent, I'm going to put you in the green room. We got about 6 minutes here, and I'm going to take a quick break, okay?
Sounds good, brother. We'll see you back here.
Yep, see you in a couple minutes. Be right back, everybody. All right, I am back. Pardon me here. All right. Let's bring Brent back in. the lovely and talented Kira. How are you? And who else is here?
Bunches of people.
Yeah, we got a ton of people in here tonight.
Yeah, I was glad to see some of my regulars stopping over here too.
Good.
Yeah.
I hope they hit subscribe and ring that bell.
You heard them, ladies and gentlemen. Those of you from the portal, subscribe to Brother Dave.
That's right, Brother Brent. Beautiful Brother Brent.
Triple B, baby.
That's right. You got the Triple P podcast with Triple B, baby.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. A big thank you tonight to Michelle ×3, Adam, and T-Bone for the super chats. Very much appreciate the love and support. Michelle getting ready with her big, giant, massive husband. Yeah. They're going to WrestleMania this weekend.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
That'd be a hell of a show.
Yeah, they're heading to Vegas. Don't forget, Michelle, you got to come back to Vegas.
When's your Vegas?
May 1st to 5th if you want to come.
May 1st is my birthday. That'd be a hell of a birthday present. Come down and hang out with Brother Dave.
Join us, man. Join us. Kat Doherty, welcome to SOR Chat. We're going to get going in 5 seconds. Number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you for coming on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. We'll get to the Paranormal podcast, make that Paranormal Portal podcast. Triple P. Beautiful brother Brent is here. We'll get to him momentarily. But first, we want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Tane. Tane is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. And what's the password for? Exactly. It's a riddle. Brent Thomas, Paranormal Portal Podcast is here. We're hanging on out, talking all things weird and strange, my man. And I heard, I heard this story, and one of our listeners on X, Ewok Hunter, wants me to ask you this about your UFO sighting with night vision goggles.
Oh, so you've heard the story, Dave?
I've heard bits and pieces. I haven't heard the full detail.
Well, buckle up. We're going in.
Nice. Let's do it.
It's a pretty cool story. Now, I just right up front, I want to say, all my life, I believe these were a real thing. All my life. And I grew up out in rural Minnesota and looked at the night sky all the time as a kid. No light pollution, just seeing the Milky Way, all that. Never saw anything. And so I was always wondering, you see these amazing clips, and this is probably, pre-digital video editing and all of this stuff. So, there was some pretty cool clips out there. I was like, well, how are these people seeing this stuff? And I don't ever see anything. So I just have kept looking, but I didn't ever doubt that this was real, but I've never seen anything to substantiate it either. So the way this goes, it was probably 2013, 2014. It was early spring 2014, I think, or 13. Anyway, regardless, I was working remotely at this time. It was long before I had the Paranormal Portal. The portal started in 2016. But I was doing marketing and advertising remotely for a preparedness company. And so I worked out of my home in Minnesota, and the company at that time had just moved from Indiana over to the North Tip of Idaho, where I am now. Well, it came to be contract time when we were negotiating contracts for advertising and stuff with different networks. And so the owner of the company lived out here, and he'd been working on this new mountain house up that he was going to move into with his wife and child. And he said, hey, why don't you come out and be a part of these meetings? Because, of course, I was doing a lot of the marketing and handling that. And he said, so come on out. So I did. I got out here. He flew me out. And when I got into town, he said, look, I've got this house up in the mountains. And I'd known about it. I traveled out here once before and had seen it. But it's a beautiful home. It's out in the middle of nowhere. It's on basically this logging road into the mountains of North Idaho. And it's off grid completely, got solar and all of the modern amenities, but it's off the grid. And so the house is situated in this mountain valley where the logging road is on one side of the mountain valley. And then off of there was his driveway with a switchback and then the house. And it's miles out in the mountains, about 3 miles via road from any kind of main road. And you're out there by yourself. Now there's other structures out there, but they were all like seasonal cabins and stuff. And when I was out there, I mean, there's nobody around, but he said, why don't you stay up there? The house is ready. We're not moved in yet, but that way I don't have to pay for a hotel for you. I'm like, okay, cool. Yes, I can stay up in the mountains. That would be fine. So he brought me up and kind of showed me around, showed me what you have to do because it's all off grid and turning stuff on and doing this and that. And then it would be all set for me. So he took me up there during the day before the meetings and showed me around, showed me what I had to do. And he's like, hey, by the way, I got these night vision binoculars. You should check these out at night. And I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool idea. And at no point had UFO entered my mind. The reason I was excited about the night vision binoculars was I'd always heard that a lot of the stars in our galaxy are red stars and you can't see them with your naked eye. But I'd always heard people that were stargazers and recommended, look at the night sky with infrared, with night vision. It's crazy. There's like so many more stars. You won't believe it. And I was like, well, I guess I can test that out. So we went through the days of meetings, got done, and it was getting towards evening. The sun was going down. It was getting dark. And so I decided to leave the town and head up into the mountains all by myself in the middle of nowhere. And I got up there. It was dark. I mean, there was a bit of a crescent moon, so it wasn't pitch black. And then, of course, when your eyes adjust to the darkness, it's not so bad because there's just millions of stars above you and stuff. It's a brilliant night sky up here. And so I got in the house, got all settled and stuff. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to grab those night vision binoculars and go out and check it out. Check out the stars because there's no light pollution here. So I grabbed them and went outside into the driveway out in front of this mountain house. And I'm standing there. I'm looking up at the skies to these night vision binoculars. Now, these binoculars are made by a company called Night Owl. And actually their icon or their branding looks very much like yours for Night Owl. But I was just like, well, let me look at the night sky. So I turn them on and they're only 4-power magnification and they're generation 1 night vision. So it's all green. Everything you see is green. So I turn them on. I'm looking at the night sky and I'm looking around like, oh my God, it was incredible. It was incredible. There are literally, Dave, millions of more stars in the sky. You won't even recognize constellations. Like you can look up at the sky, the Big Dipper, Orion's Belt. There was millions of more stars. It was just incredible. And I'm just marveling at this going, wow, it's crazy. I can't recognize anything. You just see a whole different night sky. It's like you're on an alien planet. It's really, really cool. So I'm looking around, then I'm like, hey, I've got night vision. I'm playing with it. So I'm going to look at the opposite slope of the mountain across the way. And because it's all just this dark silhouette, I look over there with the night vision. I can see all the individual trees on the opposing mountainside. And I'm like, wow, this is really cool. Then I turn back and I look down the driveway, which is a switchback. But with my naked eye, it was just this dark hole. But with the night vision, I could see all the way to the end of the switchback. It was just really cool. I was just having a ball. And then I was like, well, I'm going to look at the night sky again. So I've got the binoculars like this and I just pan up and I'm panning up these trees, these big conifer trees that are right by the driveway there. And I get above that and I'm looking up and about 30 feet above one of that conifer tree, about maybe 100 yards away from me, 150 yards, somewhere in there, hovering is, no kidding, a flying saucer.
No way.
Now, yeah, hand to God, true story. And I'm like, now what's interesting is that usually when you hear flying saucer, you think of this. You think of like the 2 pie plates just pinned together and there's like a sharp ridge on the edge going the diameter of the thing, but this wasn't what I saw. What I saw was a gap between the upper and the lower, and in that gap were these panels, these rectangular panels. And these panels were flashing lights in like a chasing light pattern, like you'd see on the old movie marquees. You know, the lights would chase each other around. That's what it looked like going through this panel. So this thing's emitting light, and it's sitting up there, absolutely silent, not a sound. And I'm looking at it going, oh my God. And I'm looking, I'm going, you know, I mean, here it is. I'm seeing it. It's real. It's here. They're right there. I can see them. And I'm just, my mind is just blown. And I'm watching and watching. And I'm like, I got to see this with my own eyes. So I'm looking right at it through the binoculars, and I just lower the binoculars. I can see the tree. I can see the silhouette of the tree. Where that ends, I can see the stars behind it, but there's nothing there. Like, oh my God, it must have took off. It's gone that quick. Just gone. I raise the binoculars. It's still there. I lower the binoculars. I can't see it. It's not visible. It doesn't exist in the sky according to my native eyes. But with the night vision, it's there. And I'm doing this and this and this. And I'm like, now my mind is absolutely, it's gone. I mean, it's just like, oh my God, they can hide. They can hide. They could be in your front yard and you wouldn't know. They could be out there making sandwiches and you wouldn't know they were there. They could be sitting on your house.
Oh, yeah.
They could be anywhere. And we wouldn't know. They can hide from the light that our eyes can see. And I'm just like, oh my God. So I'm trying to suck all this in. I'm in this moment. My jaw is on the driveway, on the gravel driveway. Just like, oh my God. And then it occurred to me, I'm all alone up in these mountains. I'm the only thing going on in these mountains. And I'm sitting down here watching them, and they're right above the tree. Chances are they're still there because they're watching me. And then I was like, oh, I got all weirded out. And I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to go inside now. So I turned them off, went inside, locked the doors, shut all the blinds, and paced for hours. And I'm peeking out the blinds. Not that it would have done me any good because I'm not using night vision, but I'm just like, are they coming? Are they coming? And that was it. It was finally about 3 hours later, I just had an adrenaline dump and crashed and fell asleep. That's the whole experience, but that is the honest to God truth. That's what happened. And now no missing time, nothing else, no weird pains when I woke up. So that was my UFO experience.
That is wild, man. What did you do the days following that story of that encounter? What did you do afterwards? Because I know when I had my first close encounter, dude, I was up for days. I was only averaging like 2-3 hours sleep. I was trying so hard to try and find something on Google or something on YouTube that was similar to what I had seen and could not find it. What did you do?
Well, I can tell you that I was wired, and I was kind of uncomfortable about staying up there after that again, but I did. I stayed for a couple more nights up there and then ended up traveling back to Minnesota at the time, but I eventually moved up here. But I'll tell you, the first thing I did when I got home was order those night vision goggles. I ordered them, and they were kind of spendy, but I just had to know. I had to start watching the sky. And I'll tell you what, I have seen so many strange things using those things. Now, I do have one big regret. My big regret is there was nowhere to press record, because all I have is an anecdotal story, but I would have had what could have been the Patterson-Gimlin film of the UFO world if I had been able to press record, but I couldn't do that. So it's my story. Now, the wonderful thing. So what did I do? I processed like crazy. Again, I had always had an open mind and knew that this stuff was real. I knew it had to be. But in that moment, I went from believer to knower. And there really is a difference. There really is a difference between believing something can be real and knowing that it's real. So, it was this whole epiphany, but I don't know. I don't recall, like, I never could sleep really well. So I didn't notice that it was any different after that. And if I had had missing time or something, it probably could have been harder for me. Or if I had had a close up in person, encounter with some being, it probably would have been much more intense, but it was like they were watching me, I was watching them. The only thing I wish that I had done, if I could go back and do it over, is to wave. I wish I would have waved. And why? I don't know. But I just felt like, wouldn't it be neat if you waved and all of a sudden a little hand appeared in the window up there? I don't know. It's probably stupid, but that's the one thing I think about. It's like, I wish I could have said, hey, like I see it, but I'm sure they knew I saw them because I was sitting there staring through these goggles up into their space, and they're staring with their craft right above there, looking at me going, you can see me. Now, the thing that really cooks my bacon about this is, and I've thought about this so many times since then, is like either that was divine precedent, that I was brought to that experience because I was supposed to have it by some divine measure, or it was somehow controlled by the extraterrestrials who some people believe they will show you when they think you're ready to see them or whatever. But I think it was more the divine stuff, because what were the odds that I would be suddenly in North Idaho, suddenly in the location that they would be, with the one piece of equipment that I could actually use to observe them? The variables that are involved in that are just mind-boggling, right? So could they have been that much in control of my situation? Like, I can totally believe that they could maybe telepathically go, you want to go outside, look at the sky. That I can get around. But how could they have been so in control that they could have made sure that me from Minnesota, in the middle of the Midwest, would be in North Idaho, would be up in a mountain cabin, would be able to see them with the one piece of equipment that was possible to observe them with? So I really kind of steer towards the divine.
And you know what? If I can add to that, if I may,
Sure, please.
In 2023, at this weird spot that I was telling you about earlier, we had, as weird as this may sound, we were warned by a Sasquatch that there was a UFO and alien in between us.
Oh, wow.
This Sasquatch growled at us from our base camp when we were on the same trail where we were being followed by the Sasquatch a year later. And when we started hustling back, thinking we have a bear in camp, and, we've got all of our food there, our $30,000 worth of camera equipment there, we're hustling back, and I'm looking through the trees, and I see this big brown thing sitting on the ground. And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, there's no hair on that. That's metal. Realized that it was a UFO. My team, I'm the only one out of 7 people who saw the UFO.
Yeah.
The other 6 saw a 6-foot alien, gray, walking through the trees. Now, I'm looking in the exact same spot they are for the alien. I don't see the alien. I see the UFO. 6 others don't. 6 others see the alien. I don't.
Huh. Wow, that's intense, right?
Yeah.
Oof. What do you make of that? That's just incredible, right?
I think, in my opinion, because there are no facts.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I think that they have deflected that a lot from me because I get really worked up.
Oh, okay.
And I think I've had that happen before. And I think that they do it for my safety.
Fair enough. Okay. That makes sense.
Because they know I'll probably have a jammer.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. That makes sense. Yeah. I've heard other stories similar to that, and I always wrapped it up to people's paradigm, because the story that I heard, and it has to do with Bigfoot. Do you mind if I share it?
No, please. We got 5 minutes.
Okay. Well, the story goes, and this story was actually given to me by Ronnie LeBlanc, and he was telling me about this guy who was and this guy told him the story that was there experiencing it. He was a very big fan of Bigfoot, just Bigfoot everything, was all on board. And he had 2 friends, and one of his friends had an open mind, like, well, maybe there's something there. Let's, I'd be kind of interested to look. And then he had another friend who was an absolute skeptic. Nope, that's a bunch of crap. No such thing. So they ended up going to an area near them that had these hotspots. There had been a lot of sightings. They go up there, and they're up on this forest road. or a path, and I don't recall which, but anyway, they're right there. And suddenly all three of them are looking down this path. And the believer guy, he sees a full form, 8 foot tall plus Bigfoot step out of the forest into the path in front of him, can make out extraordinary detail with what he's seeing, sees everything. The open-minded guy, he could make out that there was a Bigfoot-like silhouette in the path in front of him, but couldn't make out any details. Just it looked like probably like a Bigfoot. It was huge, bipedal, whatever. The skeptics saw nothing, looking all three the same direction. They all had very different experiences. And I always wondered, was that a measure of their paradigm?
It makes me wonder, because I think that the phenomena really only allows people to see it when it wants them to see it. And the more open you are to having the experience, the more it's going to challenge you with those experiences. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's again, it gets into a lot of the beliefs, like, what do you believe they're capable of? Can they get into our heads? Can they influence us that way? Or is it something about us? Or is it a self-preservation thing with our own psychology? Like, are they applying the filter, or are we? And that's where I get stuck. I don't know. I wonder about that all the time, though. It's like, what are they actually, orchestrating the entire event? Or are they just deciding, well, I'm going to make myself seen, and then it's our psychology, our mental blocks, other things, maybe, it might be just within our heads that we have these filters that apply on this stuff. So I don't know. I'm kind of torn, brother, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think the phenomena is a lot more personal than what we give it credit for.
Sure. Okay.
I really do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that most of us just do not accept the signs that are there. And I think if we opened up more, like I look at people in our chat room that I know personally, and I know that if something happened, they would pick it up like that. Yeah. They just would. But I also know there are people in our chat room who are dying for an experience, and maybe are trying too hard, or maybe the phenomena feels they're not ready for that encounter. Like, I know, like, if I use me as an example, I know that when I see something weird happen to me, I freeze. I do. Like, I can sit here and act tough and everything and say, yeah, I saw a Bigfoot, I went chasing after it. That ain't the case, man. If I see a Bigfoot, which I've only seen 3, but I'm literally taking toddler steps in order to get closer to it. I'm not running and jumping after this thing, because if I'm trying to chase down something that's 8 feet tall and 400 pounds of muscle, this thing's going to kick my ass pretty quick.
Yeah. If I saw a Bigfoot, there'd be just a huge fudge stripe from there to back to camp. I'm just saying, I'm going to put it all out there, Dave. I'm no hero.
No. And why be a hero when you don't have to be? Yeah. But let me ask you this, though. Why do you think we're not allowed in the community to just enjoy the experience for what it's worth? We're supposed to be recording at all time. We're supposed to be, videotaping at all time. We're supposed to be taking pictures at all time. Why can't we just enjoy the experience and talk about it like good campfire stories? 30 seconds.
It's the skeptic's crutch, right? If there isn't a picture, then it didn't happen. But unfortunately, these things are so quick, there's no way people could be, the presence of mind of, oh, let me get a quick selfie while I'm afraid for my life. No, I'm with you. I think you can't appease other people or do this for other people. And you can't let their criticisms affect what it means to you either.
All right, my friend, we're going to head to break here in 4 seconds. Another hour and a half with Brent Thomas. We're keeping him the distance. He doesn't have a choice. This is way too much fun. Spaced Out Radio.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
you talking about what you were just saying. I have this paranormal photo.
Mhm.
Let me see if I can find it here, and I'll show it to you. Let me see here. No. I have this photo of a ghost on a stairwell.
Ooh.
Okay. Like, dude, we're talking full body apparition, not see through it, thick as day.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. And I had some very good people whom I trust who actually had the technology to go through the photo, and they were like, holy shit. Right.
Really? Wow.
So one day I get this no-name brand paranormal investigator says,
One of those guys, yeah.
send me the photo. I'll see if it's real or not. I said, who are you?
Yeah, good for you.
Well, I'm a paranormal investigator. I said, I've had professionals look at this, including former police officers, former agents.
Uh-huh.
Well, their opinion means nothing. It's my opinion that matters. And I just said, who are you? Right?
Right.
Can't
Yeah.
stand guys like that. I want to show you this photo.
I'd love to see it.
Where is it here? I'm going to find, I know it's on my computer somewhere. Let me go to my pictures. Now I'm going to have to search. Gosh darn it.
It's okay. You can bring it over to the portal when you come on.
1 second. Maybe I got it here. No, I know it's on this computer. Well, I know I have it here. Damn it. Damn it, Jim.
That happens to me all the time. It'll be just this one moment. It's like, ooh, I'm going to show you guys this. And then I'll just look at my hard drive and go, oh, Christ, I'm never going to find that.
Well, I'll find this one. I know where it is, but
Oh, good. Okay.
I have to send it to myself.
No, that's cool. I'm looking forward to it. That's a hell of a capture. I mean, that's the holy grail of ghost hunting right
Dude,
there.
this thing is sick.
Wow.
All right. Which time we got? 2:35. All right. All right. 1 second here. All right. Let's go like this.
Oh, no way.
Right here.
Oh, yeah. I can see him right away. That head was poking over the railing.
Yeah. And we
Ooh.
don't know what this was behind him. But I wish Facebook had a way to zoom in, because there's actually a giant scar going down his forehead.
Oh, man.
We've actually got 2 photos of him. He lives up in this area.
Oh, I bet he does.
And dude is crazy, man.
Yeah. Is he aggressive or?
Oh yeah. He's attacked people before. He's attacked me.
He looks like the get off your lawn guy.
Oh yeah. Jerry Lahane, how are you? Nice to see you.
That's a phenomenal capture.
Yeah, it's a sick photo, man.
It is. That's one of the better ones I've ever seen, brother.
Yeah. And it was caught on a Samsung phone by a lady on our ghost tour who was only there because her friend watched all the paranormal shows. And she had zero belief in the paranormal, didn't even want to go. And she got the photo of a lifetime.
How about now? Does she have a belief now?
Yes, indeed.
Yep.
That she does.
Yeah, that's it.
That she does. We got about 37 seconds.
Sure.
Yeah, it's
So
crazy.
we're gonna go the full 3 hours, right?
Yeah, dude, let's do it. We're having fun. The audience is having fun.
Good.
Let's just do it.
Yeah,
You cool with that?
I'm great with it, brother. I'll stay all
Yeah,
night.
man.
If I want to. You just gotta build me a wing on the studio, Dave. I'm sticking around.
Move in. Just move in. Thank you to T-Bone ×2, Michelle ×3, Adam, and Lenda for the super chats. Greatly appreciate the love and support. Don't forget you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. You can wear our stuff out in public and be proud of it. Here we go, everyone. With the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Great to have you with us as we are joining the Paranormal Portal with Brent Thomas tonight. R2. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. All right, from the Paranormal Portal podcast, Brent Thomas is here. We're having a great night just talking everything paranormal, supernatural tonight. It's a lot of fun, and thank you for making a great night of radio, Brent.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure, but you're making it real easy for me, Dave. I it's hard to have a bad show here. You're just such a pro. I love it. It's great. I love the conversations we're having, man. This is really a lot of fun. It's, I and maybe this is true for you too, but I love discussions about this stuff, and I love back and forth ideas and conversation. And that's exactly what we've been doing. Like, I've done a lot of interviews, and a lot of times it's just, you get the question and then I provide some kind of question, but I love this dialogue. This is, for me, what I get excited about.
A lot of things can be found out and solved when you have a discussion.
Yes.
When you can share opinion. And my God, there's been a lot of times when I've been wrong, man. A lot more than I've been right. But I mean, when you look at the status of paranormal today, okay, the television shows, the amount of paranormal investigators, the podcast, the amount of, it seems every day there's a new podcast coming out on something. And I think it's great for these new voices to come in. But are we, as a fringe community, getting oversaturated with information on television, on podcast, on YouTube, even locations?
I don't know. I guess the thing that I think is really important is for this and even our shows to continue to evolve, like, to keep bringing as much new stuff as we can to the format and stuff. But you're right. I mean, there's maybe on the shows, definitely, because the recipe's always been the same. It's, we're going to this place, they're locking us in. A few moments in this place, a few clips, some questionable events, and then on to the next one. And sometimes they catch something amazing, but most of the time it's mediocre. And I'm not disparaging any of these shows. I love watching them. I watch as many of them as I can because I think they're fun. And do I think that they're all above board? Well, maybe not, but I still enjoy watching them. I have a hard time believing that every house you go to can have, shattering glasses and slamming doors. That just isn't been any experience of most serious researchers that I know, and certainly not my own. If you get a good K2 hit and an EVP in a night, like 8 hours of research, that's a hell of a night. But on some of these channels, it's like, everything's a demon. And so I think there's a plethora of people that are trying too hard. They're overdoing it. And then you're right. I mean, there's a lot of new voices, and I think that's fantastic. I'm all for people. If you want to get out there, you want to talk, you want to tell stories, you want to dive into this, by all means. I'm kind of spiderwebbing here, Dave, so I apologize, but I've got to tell you.
No, I think it's great.
When I first, go ahead.
this is where we allow your opinion, man, to flow through, man. And your opinion is just as valid as anybody else's. And I think for me, I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I think at times we're pushing the envelope a little too far for how many people are in on this. I mean, you take paranormal television. I always joke with my audience, it's the same locations every season, just a different crew that's there.
Yeah. How
many times do we have to see the Whaley House or Alcatraz or Gettysburg or Waverly Hills, or when it was still around, Bobby Mackey's, every season it was those locations, and now we could add Brushy Mountain to that, and it's not that I'm not appreciative of paranormal tourism or these incredible hot spots that are like the Disneyland for the paranormal, but show me something different, man.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a great point. And that's, I would certainly agree with that. That's, the formula has been pretty unchanged, even the locations, like you said. And one thing that I think is that, so I try to put myself in the place of, let's say I'm a earthbound spirit and I'm sitting in Brushy Mountain, just chained to a cell. Like that's where I get to spend eternity. And how long will those locations continue to be great locations? Or does it get played out, especially for the spirits? It's like, oh, here comes the 10 o'clock. I guess I better light the cat ball again, or something like that. I mean, it's got to get played out, or they've got to get played out. And then if it does take a lot of energy for these presences to interact with us, do they get just, wiped out in a sense and unable to participate? I went to St. Ignatius, was it last year?
We just had her on, Valerie, on last night.
Oh, she's wonderful. Yeah. I talked with her for hours when I was there. And I still haven't aired that footage. Can you believe that? I've got mountains of that. But anyway, I went there, and while we were there, my friend Charles and I and Don at the time, we were going there. We went there for 2 consecutive nights and investigated St. Ignatius. It's a wonderful place. It's really cool. Almost no activity in both nights that we were there. It was maybe it was 2 years ago, October, but it had already been gone through every day, several tours coming through. And so there wasn't a lot of activity for us. And that's understandable. But we also stayed in a haunted Airbnb. And let me tell you, that was off the hook. I got some great stuff there. It got some incredible yes, no detector, that pyramid with the red and green light on it. And my friend had a structured light camera, Charles, and he was able to map a figure there interacting with that pyramid. And I still have that footage to generate and put out there. But, we had great activity at this bed and breakfast, or this Airbnb, but we had almost nothing at St. Ignatius. And if you would have asked me, I would have thought it would have been absolutely reverse. Like maybe something happens at the Airbnb, but we were the only things happening in that house for quite a while. Nobody had been there for a while. So there was a lot of energy, a lot of things going on, but the famous place had been gone through, like you said, so many times every year. And so if I were a spirit, how many times would you be willing to jump through the flaming hoop for a bunch of strangers? It'd be like you're in your living room watching TV, and here comes a crew of 5 people like, oh, well, change the channel. Why don't you drag a vacuum around? Can you turn the lights down? It's too bright. Asking all of this stuff. It's like, get the hell out of my house. What are you doing? So I think that perhaps they get played out, these energies, these personalities, these people, and perhaps the places just get wiped out over time. And I'm not saying, forever, but I think that you're right. The tourism's just over the top. And I know these places have got to make a living. They got to sustain. And, like places like St. Ignatius, it's a big facility. And they're every dime that comes in, they're rolling back into the facility to fix it and to repair and to keep it up. And so I love that, and I will continue to support it. But, you're right. It's there's a lot of the same out there every year.
Oh, very true. Very true. Do you think then, or what do we need to do to spice up the whole paranormal UFO cryptid game? What do we
Well,
need to do?
okay, so for one thing, I've put a lot of thought into this, and so let's just take this segment by segment. For the UFO stuff, I don't know, because they seem to be calling all the shots on this. We can't actively go out and search for UFOs unless, go to certain spots. But for Bigfoot, for example, most of the people that have Bigfoot encounters were people that were absolutely not looking. They were not looking. They were out camping with their family in the family truckster, and they ended up by this mountain stream, and suddenly they had logs and rocks and howls and yells and screams and were terrorized, and then they left. But then you have groups of people going out and looking, and I think maybe the big difference is you can't go looking for them, because I think that chances are they're already watching us long before. And probably the minute we enter their forest, they're already onto us. They're already watching, seeing what's going on. And I think they notice things like, why are they looking at where we walked? Look at them where I broke that tree. They're sitting there doing. And so they know, maybe they think they're getting hunted. And so they just move back. They just drift back, and they don't engage, because I think they're smart. I think they're intelligent, and they're able to observe us looking at what they did. And so I don't know, it doesn't take a whole lot of reasoning to know when somebody's after you, and I think they pick up on that, and then they're like, okay, wait, no, we don't, to move back, get the family out of here, whatever, in a lot of cases. But it's the families that aren't looking for them, that are just doing their thing. So I think for Bigfoot research, that's probably the best angle. And I know that's not novel, that's not new, there's already people that do that, but I think they'll just have a better likelihood of having interaction, because they're not presenting themselves as, I'm hunting for you, I'm not casting your footprints, I'm not trying to get fur samples off of trees and stuff. I think that's the big difference. Most of the people that see them weren't looking for them, and they came and showed themselves. So for ghost stuff, some of the best research that I and Charles, my investigating partner, have had, we've done the thing where you go into the place and you ask all the questions. What year is it? Do you know you're dead? How did you die? All that stuff, the canned questions that everybody and their brother asks, and get nothing. Like, all the equipment's flatlined. But what has happened several times for Charles and I is we'll just sit down and just start having a conversation, and then suddenly a K2 hit or a REM pod squeal, like they're there and they're watching, but they choose to interact. So I think maybe that's a commonality between at least those two things. And maybe we just got to make ourselves more interesting somehow. Does that make sense?
I think you're right, but I think it's also pushing the limits, if I may add to that. It's
Absolutely.
pushing the limits to find new locations. And use our imaginations on what else is out there, rather than piggybacking off of what Ghost Adventures did, or
Yeah.
or any other paranormal show.
Sure.
I want some spice, man.
Yeah.
I want to know about these small hick towns in the middle of Idaho or Montana or North Dakota, where you're driving forever, and then all of a sudden you come around this road, this town with, population 72.
Yeah.
And yet they've got a bunch of abandoned buildings in there. So, back in the day, it was a hip place to be.
Right.
Those are the stories I want, man. Like I look in our area here where I live. If I go down by Whistler, there's a bunch of entire towns down there that are abandoned. And one of those abandoned towns is claimed to have a demon that walks through the town, and it scared everybody away. That's the stuff I want to see. That's taking it to the next level. It's not trying to communicate with a ghost 18 minutes after you hear the celebrity died. It's not going into the forest with a drum kit and letting Eddie Van Halen go crazy on the sticks to see if that attracts a Sasquatch.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like that at all.
Mm.
But if we don't push the limits, and I'm saying legally, because there's a lot of people who don't care out there.
Sure.
But if we don't push the limits and find, to prove to people that there's all these amazing locations out there, what are we missing?
You hit on something really powerful though. And this is my experience. So I've been to like the Davenport Hotel, the Montvale Hotel, investigating both of those. I've been to St. Ignatius. I've been to Ghost Town, Coloma, over there. Duke invited me over and went over a couple of years and investigated over there. It's a fascinating place. And I might have actually caught a Bigfoot up there. Duke reminded me about it in chat. I saw that he mentioned that. But where was I going? I actually had a point, Dave. I forgot it. But I think you're right in that. I remember what I was going to say. I've actually got some of the greatest evidence ever when I was doing live streams right here in my studio, and I set up my equipment on a table next to me, about 6 feet away from me, and had a camera on it, and sat and did the show. And I got some great feedback. I got this build that's based off of the Huff Paranormal portal, not Paranormal End portal, but Huff Paranormal built a tool called the portal. And a friend of mine, Dan, is he's a geek techie guy, and he built one, and I have it now, and I have that set up there. It uses a sound database, so it uses pieces of words, not words. And then it runs it through a noise gate and then reverb and then into a speaker. And so I had that set up along with a cat ball, one of those flashy cat balls.
Yeah.
And then a flashlight test. And I sat here, I had it all set up. And in my reason for doing it was just to do something different on my show, so I could show people that are watching, this is the equipment, this is how it's used. I wasn't expecting anything. But on one example, I turned it all on, and we've gotten some weird stuff here and there. But I turned it on. I said, is anyone here who wants to communicate? Now, remember, the database is only like syllables and no complete words. Instantly, a voice comes through and says, yeah, I do. Just like that. And it's on Instagram. It's on my Instagram, that video. And then it made the cat ball go off, and then a flashlight. And another time it said its name was Peter. I said, Peter, where are you? And then the cat ball went off. It started flashing. I was like, oh, he's right there. And then I said, Peter, are you here all the time? Boom, the flashlight goes on. Just like that. 1, 2, 3. And I was like, wow, that's really incredible. And I think that when you're investigating, yeah, you might get hit on a K2, or your REM pod might go off. But if they're independent, it's powerful, but it's not as conclusive. But if you get multiple modalities getting triggered, then it becomes so much more powerful. It's like, wow, it triggered the word database and made it say something that shouldn't have been possible. It made the flashlight go off and the cat ball. That's 3 things that have been triggered. That to me was very powerful. But that was sitting right here in my own studio. So you're right. It's sometimes you got to look where you don't look, or not where nobody else is looking, and you can get some amazing stuff.
Would you consider then your studio haunted?
This house, and I don't know if I would say it's haunted. I just think there's a presence here. But I will tell you this. All right, so tell me what you think, because you're a fellow host, and I can ask you this, and you will have feedback. I think that by virtue of doing shows where we're constantly discussing this stuff, that in some esoteric way, it calls some of it to us.
Yes.
I firmly believe that. And I've had people email me going, I never had anything happen in my house. I started listening to your show, and now this picture falls off my wall every time. And I was like, well, that's not what I was going for. Sorry. But people write me emails like that. Not a lot, but they've happened. But I think there is something about discussing this stuff. Maybe, a lot of occult ideas in mysticism and magic deal with a principle called magnetism. That's, and it's kind of also reiterated in the The Secret or whatever, the newer recompilation of a lot of ancient wisdoms and philosophies. But magnetism is basically, if you want something, you have to magnetize it to you. And that's maybe what's happening. Maybe it's something like that. Like by virtue of discussing this stuff and having and thinking about it and sending all that energy and focus to it, maybe it does find us.
I would agree with you on that. I've had some strange things happen during this show, from remote viewers to ghosts to I had one of our former listeners, a couple years now. He, after the show one night, he came in and he said, "This is my final goodbye." And this was a gentleman. He lived in Denmark and had a lot of health issues. And he was having a doctor-assisted unaliving 8 hours from the time he was here in our chat room.
Wow.
And in behind me, our radio audience can't see it, but I got a guitar there.
Yes.
And the guitar used to be on my right side. And there's a little sticky note in the name there. And he chatted with us for about an hour before he said, "Hey, I got to go spend some time with my family. But just wanted to say thank you to the SOR audience." Ethereal Aura was his name in the chat room. And I said to him before he goes, I said, "Do me a favor." I said, "When you're on the other side," I put that sticky note in between the strings tight. I said, "When you're on the other side, you want to come by and say hello, move the sticky note." And probably 3-4 months after, I'm on the show and the sticky note moves.
Oh, wow.
Had to be him.
Yes.
Had to be. So yeah, we've had some strange things happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that it finds you. It's the old Nietzsche. You look into the abyss and the abyss stares right back, so kind of the same thing. And although that sounds a little darker, I don't think that most of this stuff is horrible and dark. And, I think a lot of it is just, it's unusual and we don't always know what to do with it, but I don't think that it's necessarily evil. Like there's some people have the school of thought, like, well, if you're talking to demons, it's got to be, if you're talking to spirits, you must be talking to demons, and they'll give their religious ideology based on that. And I don't know. I mean, I can't speak to, all of that. I don't believe it personally, though. That's not been my experience. I've not experienced, I have experienced some dark, horrible stuff that I don't really discuss, but for the most part, everything I've experienced for the most part has been benign or at least not aggressive, I should say. The scratching was about the most aggressive thing I've experienced for quite some time. And I didn't even think that was aggressive so much as, I don't know what it was for. I mean, maybe the only thing I could think, getting back to that story, is maybe I irritated it by talking about his story. Like, it was just like, what are you doing? That's my story. You don't tell people about that. But so I don't know if that's true or not, but it just, that was my take.
Well, we got about a minute to go here. Want to ask you this. We might have to carry over this answer into hour 3.
Okay.
What's your best advice for a new podcaster getting into the paranormal world?
My best advice is you've got to create a persona. Like you got to put energy into what you're doing. Like person to person, I don't really talk like this. I'm much more subdued and quiet, but I know that by virtue of doing these shows, you've got to project yourself into what you're doing, because people will respond to that energy. And it took me a long time to learn that. But I think also, if you love it, follow it, give it everything you got, and don't get discouraged. This is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
A lot of people think they're going to hang a sign out and it's going to take off, but it's just not the reality.
My advice as we go to break: be different. Dare to be different. We'll get into that and more on Spaced Out Radio. Brent Thomas going the distance with us tonight.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, my friend. I'm going to go fill up my water bottle. We got about 6 minutes, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
I'll be right back. I'm just going to put you in the green room.
Okay.
All right. I am back. We got about a minute to go. All right, let's bring Brent back in. There you are.
Are we going into hour 3 now?
Yeah, about a minute.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
wow,
man.
it's gone fast, brother.
What's that?
It's gone fast.
Oh, totally, dude. Totally.
I hope you're enjoying it too, brother.
Oh, I'm having a blast.
Okay, good.
Josephus, how you doing, my man? I don't normally do 3 hours with people, man.
Oh,
That's how you know I'm having a blast.
I knew you liked me.
Yes. All right. Big thank you to Michelle with a hat trick, T-Bone ×2, Lenda and Adam for the super chats. Greatly appreciate the love and support tonight, everybody. So thank you very, very much. Be like T-Bone and go shop at the Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. So make sure you check it on out and do a little shopping there. Yeah, we're having fun.
Absolutely.
We're enjoying ourselves.
Yep.
Hope you are too.
I know I am.
Going. We're getting going here in about 5 seconds.
Okay, take us home.
Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. We're scrapping the normal playbook. We're bringing Brent Thomas back in for hour 3. We're just having such a great conversation. So why not continue it? Hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. So let's continue on. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Tane. Tane is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Brent Thomas is here, hanging on out. Paranormal Portal Podcast is his show, and it's on YouTube as well. You can go hit subscribe right there. And I did. Yeah, I did. I'm not going to lie. If you go look at his subscribers, you'll see me on there. You will. Brent, thank you for coming on in, man.
Oh, it's just been a blast, brother. Thank you so much for having me. And I have noticed progressively as the night's going on, you pronounce my show better and better.
I know. The triple P, man. Triple P. Paranormal Portal Podcast right there. See how smooth that was?
That was beautiful. I might have you do voiceovers for me.
Oh, yes. I can do that. I can do that. We haven't really touched on the UFO story here. You a big fan of what you're seeing in ufology today?
You know, I'm kind of confused by what I see in ufology today, because it's like, I don't know. It seems to be that we're in kind of a period of soft disclosure, and I think that's great. It's kind of a slap in the face at the same time, because it wasn't that long ago everybody that believed in UFOs was like a paint huffing, tinfoil hat wearing, goober, as far as they were concerned. And now they're, acknowledging that, oh yeah, no, there is stuff that we don't know what the hell it is. And it's in our skies, and it's buzzing our warships, and it's going over our bases. And I think that that's good, because I guess it's a kind of a redemption for those of us that have always believed and have always known that there's something more and that there's cover-ups going on. But I don't know. Again, it's like everything else, though, under our umbrella of the weird and wonderful worlds of phenomena that we deal with. But it's certainly the same. I guess maybe less so, or maybe I'm just not as tuned into it. But that there's still a lot of egos at play, and that's, I think, takes away from takes our eyes off the prize in a lot of ways. But I don't know. I think and I shouldn't probably do this publicly, but I'm not sure what, Tom DeLonge and is really going to achieve, or how much of that is actual motivation to bring the stories out and to bring truth to light, or how much of it is some other posturing that maybe it's not quite as transparent as we think. And the only reason I say this, and God, I'm probably setting myself up for some drama here, but you remember back when they had all of these samples, well, first of all, I think the name of their group is just ridiculous. The To the Stars Academy to me sounds like a revamp of Star Search. It's like, sounds like a talent show, but anyway, I'm being a jerk. But they had all of these samples, and they were out there. Oh, we're going to get them tested, and we're going to, make sure that, this stuff gets documented, and truth is going to come to light, because they had all of these samples that were sent in. And I think Linda Moulton Howell was one of the people that owned one of them, that they were going to find a testing site and lock into it. And then there was nothing. It was kind of radio silence for a while. And then they made their big announcement that they entered into an agreement with a testing facility they think will really get to the bottom of it. And it turned out to be the military. It was like, no,
Yes.
no, that's not going to help.
When I first started in ufology, in covering these subjects, when I started the show 10 years ago, I remember, talking to a lot of the elderly wizards of this field, and all of them seemed to have the same message: was never trust a spook in this field. And now, fast forward a decade, we're supposed to believe everything that these people tell us. And I struggle with that, because I want to believe, but there's just so much contradicting evidence and stories out there that kind of push the opposite side of the envelope. It doesn't make sense to actually do it.
Right. Yeah. I don't know what to believe. I guess that's what what in a very long drawn out way, that's what I'm trying to say, is I don't know what to believe about what's going on in the UFO movement right now. I mean, I know what I've seen. I know that I've talked to some incredible witnesses that have seen some incredible things as well, abductees and stuff. And I know that this is a very real phenomena that, for some people has been absolutely devastating, and for others has been, a marvel and incredible. But, I just don't know. It feels like there's a lot of agendas at work on this,
Way too many agendas, man.
Yeah.
Way too many agendas. And this is why, I love patterns. I love patterns and following patterns. It's one of the things that kind of excites me about it.
Yeah.
And when I see so many of these different patterns forming, from who's getting the interviews, who's not, who's being blacklisted, who's not, it's just a big conspiracy game in order to try and control the narrative. And,
yes,
to me, that's not what ufology is about.
Well, you remember the big push in Congress sent out this rule in 180 days. We want this document. It was like 6 months later. It was like 3 pages or something like that.
Right.
So,
right.
No. So I'm frustrated by the UFO movement, Dave, especially in official channels. Now, I think there's some incredible people out there doing the work, doing the layman's work, but it seems to be kind of incumbent upon, in all of these fields that we cover, it's been incumbent upon lay people, like people like you and I, to carry the mantle on this, because there's just nobody that's going to lift it for us. There's no established science communities that are going to start getting involved, and there's no physicists that are going to act. I mean, there's probably are. There's certainly the fringe people, and I'm not meaning fringe, but I mean just the odd scientist here and there that is actually interested and wants to find answers too. But they got to do it in such a level of secrecy, because it's like career suicide for them to admit that they're working on UFOs or studying ghosts or Bigfoot, cryptozoology. There aren't very many people that are willing to put their reputation on the line. So it's going to fall to people like, you and me, people that are willing to give their time, their blood, their sweat, their tears, their own resources to go out and look for answers for the rest of us, and maybe we'll find them, maybe we won't, but we're doing the best we can, and we're not getting a lot of help. So,
No, that's very true.
yeah.
That's very true. I got some audience questions here for you
Go.
that we want to make sure that we get them to you here. Let's start off with Marty here, who's asking, what does one do when one encounters a dogman?
Okay, so my first piece of advice is the fetal position, I think, and maybe a blanket to cover your head with. I don't know. Honest to God, I can't imagine seeing a dogman and what kind of terror that would elicit. I don't know if there's any good advice to that. Now I will say that most dogman encounters, they love to intimidate the hell out of people. They love to come up and just make you, wreck your pants. And then, it's like a hold your beer moment for them. They're like, oh, hold my beer. What's this? And they go around and terrorize people. And they don't actually seem to like go to harm. They just love to terrify people. And so maybe the best advice is nothing. Just stay very still and wait for it to finish. But, I don't know. What is your advice, Dave?
Back away slowly, keep it in your eyesight, but don't make eye contact.
See, you gave much better advice than I did.
Oh, I'm just saying that to be brave, because I know probably if I saw one, I would do the exact opposite, and start running. Well, and with my size, it would be a slow jog, but that's probably what I would be doing.
So I think the big takeaway, folks, is if you want advice, ask Dave. Don't ask me.
No, your advice was pretty solid. Your advice was pretty solid. So I'm going to give you some props for that. That's for sure. But I don't want to be in that position. I don't know.
Oh, I know.
But I mean, when you hear people talk about this telepathy that Dogman kind of seems to give close encountered people, people who have raised guns to it, where it says, I wouldn't do that if I were you.
Yeah.
I mean, things like that.
They go full Dirty Harry.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. That's a bad idea. Yeah. No, I and Bigfoot for that example. I mean, yeah, they both seem to be able to elicit fear, and like a huge primal fear.
Well, I don't know if I would, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know what I would do if I encountered a dogman.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know there would be a moment of instant panic.
Yeah.
I know the first calculation would be, how far am I from my vehicle? Because I'm getting the hell out of there.
Yep.
But I don't want that to happen. And the worst part about it is I know it's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, God, and it's incredibly brave or tenacious of you to know that it's going to happen, and still you're going to put yourself out there for it to happen. So I got to give you a lot of credit for that.
Well, you know what? I'm hoping it doesn't, but
yeah.
See, when I'm out in the field, I do something a little bit different than a lot of people do. Like, you get a lot of Bigfoot hunters where they're out walking for miles on these trails. I don't do that. The spot that I have had more success in just setting up chairs and sitting around a campfire than I have walking around. Yes. And to me, at least with this one group that we deal with, like, we have two areas: the real scary area and the one that's very open and wide, where in that open and wide area, they seem to be very curious. And they'll just stand in the trees and watch. And you can feel them. Sometimes you can hear them. We've had 2 sightings there since 2022. And we've heard lots of noises there. Lots of good stuff.
Wow.
But We've had in that area, we've found in the 3 years we've been out there, we have found 13-inch tracks, 15-inch tracks, 16-inch tracks, 19-inch tracks. So we know it's a hot area.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of activity, though. That many varied tracks, too. It's like you're dealing with a whole group, apparently.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be. But that area, though, they just seem curious. Like, we park in the exact same spot. Our fire is always in the same spot. Our lawn chairs are always in the same spot. We're not, and trust me, when they want us to go, they change the energy where you kind of get that feeling it's time to go.
Yeah.
Okay, they've had enough of us, and we respect that. But we always do everything the same to make them comfortable.
Sure. Wow.
And it works. Let's go to another question here. Let's go to Boondock. Brent, when you had those scratch marks, how many did you have on your skin?
I think there was like 11 or 12, something like that. There was like X patterns. It was like there was several swipes. But the topmost one was independent all by itself. And it seemed to go from the back of my head, back by my ear here, all the way up under my jaw to about right there. So it was about 4 or 5 inches. And the others were like different directions of like possibly 3, maybe 4, but like this and then like this. So, and it's possible this independent one was from another group of 2 that was below it. I don't know. It's hard to say. And again, a lot of people say, oh, 3, it's mocking the Trinity, but we don't know what these things look like. They might only have 3 fingers. So maybe they're not mocking the Trinity as much as that's what they can work with,
I love it. Let's go to another one from Rachel here. Are the scratches an attack or a side effect of an attempt to touch the living?
Again, I didn't feel like my initial reaction was first like excitement, confusion, and then laughter. Like I never felt like it was, ooh, get the hell out. Like I didn't feel like it was negative. So I don't know. It's certainly a plausible idea, Rachel. It could have been just trying to make contact with me, like I'm here, and it just overdid it. I don't know, but it was like it wasn't just once; it was several. So it's like it was going, hey, like that, give me the Stooges swipes. I don't know, but anyway, sorry.
I have been pinched once. Right on the collarbone. I live, so the Gold Rush Trail that starts in Virginia City, it actually goes about 3/4 of a mile behind my studio here.
Oh,
and
wow.
Heads right north. And we were on the Gold Rush Trail one night doing an investigation. And I'm just walking along doing my thing. And all of a sudden I got pinched right on my collarbone.
Oh,
I'd never been pinched before.
Painful pinch?
Yeah, it was like a grab, pull, and twist. Like
God.
Yeah.
Like a purple.
It hurt.
Maple. Wow.
Yeah. And I'd never had that before. Right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting.
I've only been shoved once, but it was a really cool experience too.
Let's go to Android here, who is asking, what is your Sasquatch experience, Brent?
Okay, Android, good to see you, brother. Android's an old part of my community. He hasn't been around a while, so I'll be looking for a permission slip on my desk when you come back, Android. But so this is basically, I always chalk it up to my first real paranormal experience. And where I grew up in Minnesota was right on the Mississippi River Valley, in a town just between a town called Red Wing and Frontenac. And it's on the widest part of the Mississippi, so it's called Lake Pepin. Even though it's not, I mean, it is a lake, but it's not. It's just the widest part of the river. So they call it Lake Pepin. But behind my house was a bluff, and that was a state forest preserve, and it was called Rattlesnake Bluff. So I grew up out there without a lot to do. So my entire childhood was basically in those woods and in the hills and stuff. Like that's what we did. That was our playground, was the forest. So we're always up in the hills and stuff. So, but the story goes is like there was really no friends close, but one guy did come, and he was 1 year older than me. He did come and visit his great uncle and aunt that had a house across the way. They were older, but he would always come down and spend time down there during the summers. So I was really excited when he come, because he and I were fast friends and had a wonderful friendship when he was around. So it was a summer day, and he came, and I think I was 14 and he was 15 was the age breakdown. And he got into town, and so we went up and hiked up the bluff. That was kind of what we did. We'd do like kid stuff, like rolling boulders down and watch it crash into trees and stuff. Just, stupid kid stuff, but it was, desolate. It wasn't like there was any hikers or anything in this area. It was very, very much just a lonely forest preserve. So we hiked up the bluff. We're up there during the day in the summertime, just goofing around and stuff. And then we realized, it's starting to get late in the day. We should start working our way down. Now, I want to explain a little bit about the forest there, because it's an old forest. If you've been in an old forest, it's not like you're just walled in by foliage. They're really pretty open. There's lots of trees and hardwoods and, ash, oak, maple, all of that stuff all around. But it's not like they're right next to each other. There's open. You can see for quite a ways into the distance. So it's not like, there's just nowhere you can see anything. You can see all around us, but we decided to start working our way down. So we're going down this ravine, this dry run, which is, it looked like a creek bed that was all dried up, but it was just for melt off. It's a limestone bluffs, and they were carved out over millennia of spring melt offs, and it looks like a creek bed. So we're working our way down this, and there's some parts that are kind of treacherous, and you got to be careful. And we're working our way down, and we get to the spot, and we decide to take a break. We're just going to catch our breath and kind of plot our course down the next part of the ravine. And we're standing there, and I'm standing like on the left. He's standing on my right, and we're right on the ledge of a rock overlooking the ravine dropping off below us. And we're standing there, and suddenly, right behind us is something. And the only reason we know it is there because all of a sudden, this deep rumbling growl happened.
Uh-huh.
And it was so powerful, Dave. I grew up in these forests. Like the biggest thing we had was white-tailed deer. We had raccoons, we had squirrels, we had fox, maybe the odd coyote, but nothing that was big like this. This was like a, and I can't even come close to mimicking it. But I'm here to tell you that I heard it and felt it. It was resonating my body. It was like being vibrated with this bass note, like standing in front of a big bass amp and somebody hits that low E. It's like, and I was frozen. I was absolutely terrified. It's this horrible deep growl. And where it came from, I don't know. It sounded like it was just behind us, but taller. Like, I was probably about 5'6", 5'6"-ish, 5'7" maybe back then. But I didn't know where it came from, how it got there, but it was suddenly behind us. We both froze. Now, you always hear people that are in these situations like, I couldn't move. I could move. I could have moved. I just didn't dare move. I did not dare to move a muscle because whatever was making that sound, I was convinced was about to kill me. Like this was one of the last things I was going to experience in this world. Whatever was making that noise was going to come and eat me next. And so I didn't want to move. And the last thing I wanted to do was look and see what that looked like as it came to kill me. It was just like, nope, I'm not doing nothing. I'm staying here. And we froze, and it growled and growled, and it didn't move, and we didn't move. And finally I said to my friend, what the hell is that?
Hold that thought. Final half hour, Brent Thomas finishes off the Sasquatch encounter right after this. This is Spaced Out Radio, and your host, Dave Scott. All right, half hour left, dude.
I hope I can get the rest of this story in.
Oh, we'll get you in.
No, I'm sorry. I get a little long-winded, but I want to make sure to explain everything as clearly as I can. But
Got to be able to paint a picture, my friend.
I hope it's good paint. I hope you're getting the picture. Am I doing all right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. I'll hold the rest of it till we come back. But yeah, it was freaking terrifying. It remains today, and I'll say this later again too, but it remains even to this day as the most terrified I've ever been in my life.
Oh yeah.
I've never
I
been
know
scared.
that growl, dude. That's what happened when we had the alien and the UFO in the forest.
Yeah.
We were walking along this trail, and way off in the distance, we had about a 15, 20 second one pitch roar.
Oh,
Way off in the west, way off. And in between that roar, wherever that was, and where we are, there was a bunch of free range cattle.
okay.
They started going crazy because of the roar.
Yeah.
And like, I'm with people who are experienced in the outdoors, man. And they're like, that was no bear. That was no mountain lion. That was no wolf.
Yikes.
And that's where I said, welcome to the world of Sasquatch, people. And so we start heading back to base camp.
Yeah.
When all of a sudden we get that grrr.
Ugh, still gives me chills.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have heard that twice. Once happened maybe 30 feet in front of my friend and I when I was showing her my original gifting site. And I was like, we're out. And she's like, no, let's keep going. No, there could be a grizzly bear, black bear.
Yeah.
Mountain
You didn't
lion.
think that was that sound though, right?
Yeah. But that time when we got growled at from our base camp,
Yeah.
and how I knew it wasn't a bear,
Yeah.
none of our food was taken. There was no mess. There was no footprints, nothing.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Man, that is freaky. I as soon as you made even that mimic of it, it gave me chills through my body just thinking about that again.
Yeah.
And
It's crazy.
The thing is, and I'll get into this when I go back in the story, but I had no reference point for this in my life. I mean, I had no idea. I knew what Bigfoot was, but it was just it was in the Pacific Northwest. That wasn't Minnesota. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure
But
kicks you in the teeth, doesn't it?
Man, it took me out of the woods for a good year or two after that. I wouldn't go in them. I just didn't know what was up there anymore. That had been my playground, but it took it away from me. It was like I didn't know those woods suddenly. And that was the part that terrified me. And yet my house was right next to it. So all of a sudden the night became a whole lot darker, because you don't know what's coming out of those woods. Yeah, it was horrifying.
No, dude, I get exactly with what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I do. It's not comfortable. Like that growl, it literally vibrates inside of you.
Yeah. Yep. It's a frequency. Yep. Someone in the chat said infrasound, and I don't know. I didn't feel like I got zapped. Like people talk about being zapped. I didn't feel odd. I just felt fear, just terror, So, but you know what I mean? Some people, when they get infrasounded, they get zapped and they're kind of out of sorts and loopy. And that wasn't my case. I was just thought I was going to die. That was it.
Uh-huh. I like it. I like it.
Kindred spirits, Dave.
Yep.
Yep.
It's a weird world that we live, my man.
It is. It is. Brent's got Sasquatch. Hillbilly Herb says. Sounds like a rash. It sounds like a rash.
For sure.
Got a case of the Squatches.
We got 20 seconds to go here. Thank you to T-Bone ×2, Android, Lenda, Michelle ×3, and Adam for the super chats. Greatly appreciate the love and support, guys. We're going to be going right to the top of the hour here, and then we'll call it quits. And yeah, I'll let you know. It's the end of the show, man. You know what I do. All right, here we go. All right, we're at the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Our guests go in the distance from the Paranormal Portal podcast, Brent Thomas. We're having so much fun continuing on with Brent's Bigfoot story here momentarily, but first we want to remind all of you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. All right, Brent, you're filling us in about the fear factor of getting growled at by a Sasquatch.
Horror. Let me just start it off with the word horror, because that's exactly what my 14-year-old self thought. I mean, I just thought I was going to die. So we're pinned in this moment. Like, we don't dare move. Whatever's making this noise is huge, and it's huge. And again, this is southeastern Minnesota. This is like white-tailed deer is it. And they don't growl. And everything that might growl is so much smaller than this. Whatever was making this sound was enormous. And so I finally said to my friend, after moments of just sitting there, getting growled at, being vibrated, I'm like, what the hell is that? And he goes, and his words were exactly, I don't know, but we have to get the hell out of here. And you know, so you're at that moment. It's a fork in the road. It's like fight or flight. Well, whatever's making that noise is way out of my fight category. I know that. I felt like an infant. I felt like I was about, a toddler, in physical prowess at that point. But the only thing left is flight. And that's what we did. And you'll hear people say, don't run. You might trigger the prey response in them. But what else do you have, So I did. That's what we did. And we ran down this hill. And again, it was really treacherous how we didn't die just from running, I don't know, or get broken or something, but we made it all the way down. Whatever it was that was growling didn't follow. And as I was talking on the break, I didn't know what to do with this, and neither did he. Like, we knew the world we lived in until that point, and suddenly we didn't know the world we lived in, and it was terrifying. Again, I knew what Bigfoot was, but I knew it was something that Leonard Nimoy said was in the Pacific Northwest, not in Minnesota. And I had no concept for that being a national phenomena, which I later learned that it very much is, and a global phenomena. So I carried that for years. And over time, like I said, it kind of took the woods away from me. It took away that part of my life for a long time. It made the nights darker and scarier because we lived right next to that forest. And I didn't know what was in it that made that noise. But over time, things fade, and it just kind of gets into the back of your mind. The first time that I heard a sound that brought it all back was when I was at the movie theater. And it wasn't the same sound, but the power and the intensity and the depth of it really brought me back to that moment. And I was at the movie theater in Red Wing, Minnesota, watching the first Jurassic Park. And it was the part where those kids are trapped in that car and the adults are in the car ahead of them, next to the T-Rex paddock. And the T-Rex is showing itself, and it's standing there, and the kids are terrified. And that thing brings it to the T-Rex head, comes right down to the eye level of the window, and it's going. And I'm sitting there in the theater, and it all came back. And I was just like I couldn't breathe. And it all came back. And I still didn't know what to do with it. And it wasn't until years later that I started learning about Bigfoot. And I started learning about the things that they attributed. And part of that was through a show that a lot of people have maligned for years, and it's Finding Bigfoot. And Granted, they probably were never going to find Bigfoot. They just found sponsors, but
Yes.
they did put stuff out there. They put information out there that I'd never heard before that caused me to start looking and learning. And I started learning about the signs that people attribute to Bigfoot, the things to look for in places where they might frequent and stuff. And so I was doing a product shot for that same company that I was talking about earlier, with some of the survival gear up in the forest. I thought that'd be a great place. Put it, in the rugged woodlands. And we were sitting there, and I'm sitting there, and I go, it was just this weird moment of like being guided. And all I can tell you is we were taking pictures on the lowlands of the woods right next to the bluff. And I kept getting the feeling that there's something up there I need to see. There's something up there that I have to see. And I'm like, I was talking to my oldest son was with me. I'm like, Sheldon, I'm supposed to go up there. We got to go up there. There's something I got to see. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't know. I just know there's something up there we got to see. So we got everything all wrapped up, and we hiked up further on the bluff, and we hit this point where there's these huge limestone boulders that have been, they fell off of the bluff generations ago, like thousands of years ago, maybe. But it's like it makes this wall of limestone boulders that are just enormous. And I go around them, and behind them is like a blind. And on the ground in front of me, after I come around this limestone boulder, as I go up to the next level, there's a stick, and it's like a young maple branch, like a sapling branch, but it's about maybe an inch in diameter, 1.5 inches, 2 inches. And all of the bark is peeled off of it. It's just gone. There's no bark, but I reached down, it looked wet, and it hadn't been raining, and I looked wet, but I reached down, and it was still tacky to the touch, like something. And it was snapped on both ends. It was about, maybe 12 inches long. It was snapped on both ends, but all of the bark was gone. And I'm touching it, it's like tacky. And I'm thinking, instantly the image of gorillas came to mind, where they're like grabbing, young branches and peeling the bark off of them. Like, well, maybe that's a Bigfoot. Maybe that's what it is. And I rounded the corner up there, and up there was it was a structure. But it wasn't like a teepee structure that everybody talks about. It was like a dugout. It's like behind that boulder on a plateau was dug out. And on top of it were all these broken logs and leaves that were like piled on top of it. Like it was a dugout kind of thing. I'm like, well, what the hell did this? And then I look around a little, we're looking around, and then I found about an 6 to 8 inch maple sapling. Again, that was all out in the open, and this is not a logged forest. It's absolutely a forest preserve. There's no motorized vehicles or anything there. But here's this 6, 8 inch maple sapling, 4 feet off the ground, comes straight from the ground up to about 4 feet, and it's broken, and it's laying off to the side. Now this is a young tree, but it's snapped, and there's no deadfall that would have done it. So I'm seeing all of these things, and I'm starting to go, maybe it was Bigfoot. Do I know it was Bigfoot? No, but that's what I found sign of, I think. Is it conclusive? No, but it's the best possibility that I have after all these years. I might have been close to a Bigfoot.
I think you were. I think you got Sasquatch.
I think I got squatched.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, doesn't it make you crave to go back there and see if it would happen again?
Well, I've been up in that hill after I wore out of that fear after a while. I did start going back up in the hills there, and I never really had anything but that point at which I was doing that product shot, and I just suddenly had a feeling like I've got to go up there. Like I wonder, people talk about mind speak or maybe them projecting thoughts. Maybe that's what was going on. That's a stretch on my part. I don't know that, but I don't know why I was standing there and just felt like I had to go up there. And then I went up there and started finding these things, like these things that could very well have been them. It's like, maybe, I don't know. Maybe they can read minds. I don't know.
I think it wanted you to go back.
Yeah. That's kind of what I'm saying without saying it, because it sounds like a fantastical thing to claim, but I don't know why I was taking those pictures and suddenly felt I got to go up there. I definitely got to go up there. I don't know. It's just beyond measure. Now, after that, I went back up into that area another time with my youngest son or my middle son, not my youngest son, but my middle son. And we were just hiking around. I'm like, I want to show you this. And we got into that area and he's like, Dad, I don't like it here. I'm like, why? He goes, I feel like something's watching me. And I didn't feel that at all. But he definitely picked up on it and he wanted to get out of there like right away. Like he did not want to be there. And I was like, oh, okay. So I don't know. But that's my story. That take it or leave it. it's the one I got.
I know I asked you earlier in the show what you don't want to experience, but what do you want to experience?
I don't know. I've had so many experiences. I don't know what I would wish for. I guess, you know what, if I was going to see something at this point, what I'd like to see, and not like some of the evil bastard ones, but like, I love the idea of these proto-pygmies, these little creatures, like potentially gnomes or duendes or whatever. I think that's fascinating to me because it harkens back to like all references from antiquity of folklore of these little beings that live around us. So I'm really fascinated by that. And the fact that they could be living around us and have an entire culture right around us, maybe even in our civilized areas. Like, there's the idea with house gnomes is one of the ideas that maybe they move so fast that they can't be seen very well, but that they may live among us. And there's lots of stories about people interacting with these little mini people. And I'm fascinated by that. So I think if there was one thing I really would like to see, it would be one of them.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that one. I want to see gnomes.
Yep.
I just think it would be really cool to see the little leather overalls.
Yes.
With the red cap.
Yeah. Well, the red caps are supposed to hate us though. They're supposed to be real jerks to us, but but yeah, you're right. I mean, even that would be kind of cool at a distance.
It would be totally cool to see. Let's get to another audience question here. Let's go over to in the studio. Do you think seeing is in person or your third eye was open?
I certainly think that's a possibility. That even some of these creatures, cryptids, maybe even UFOs and stuff, maybe some of it we're seeing because we're supposed to see them. Pretty much all of this phenomena, there's plenty of stories out there of people being in groups and seeing different things, kind of like the Bigfoot thing that I was going back to before, where one guy saw a Bigfoot, very detailed, could recount everything that he saw. The other guy saw a silhouette, and the skeptic saw absolutely nothing. It was just an empty path. So, there's certainly merit for that as being part of what people are experiencing in this paranormal stuff. But I do think that sometimes it's, it is just really seeing because it's there. So I don't know if I'm answering your question or not, but that's my take.
I think for me, it's when I see something with my eyes, I know it's not my third eye.
Okay.
That's the big one for me. Second question. This one fascinates me. Have you ever found a stairway in the forest? And if so, where do you think they go?
I got to tell you, this goes way back, way before I had a show, but there was this thread that was started by a person claiming to be search and rescue. And they claimed to have found these, that they were told about stairways in the forest. If you ever see them, don't go up them. And I was fascinated by this thread of stories. And I read all of them that I could. Every time they were released, I would hunt them down. And then I decided to really dig and find out who this person is, because I think this is really fascinating. I love the stories. I found them terrifying and exciting and all of that. But I looked, and I finally, after months of digging and researching and looking, I finally found the author of the stories, and I can't remember the person's name anymore, but they had their own page, and somebody was addressing a question about one of the stories, and the person essentially admitted that these were just fiction. These were a fictional thread that he'd put out. And I was like, oh, I was really let down. And so the other side of it, though, is that is it possible if enough people believe in something that it becomes real? And I think that certainly can be true. That's even things like Slender Man. It's pretty clear that it was a creepypasta, but it became something. And people swear that they've seen this thing, whatever it is. And so maybe we manifest in a subconscious way. Maybe there are stairways in the forest from ruins or whatever. Maybe they can go somewhere if that's the case. I don't know, but that one thread that I found. So ever since I found that out, I was just really disenchanted and let down because I really wanted those stories to be real. I thought they were amazing, but then I found that and I was like, oh,
I don't know if I would actually, if I came across a flight of stairs in the forest, I don't think I would go up them.
Yeah.
I'd probably touch them, touch it just to see that it's real. But going up it, oh no, I'm not taking that chance.
I'm with you. Let me rephrase that. Yeah, I wouldn't go up them just because that could be the wrong stairs. But at the same time, I just had to tell that anecdote because it was really truly a disappointment for me. I was so excited with that thread of stories and all the wonder and possibility that meant, and then to find out it was just a creative writing thread. So.
Yes, the old creepypasta, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Do you think then that a lot of these legends that we hear of, like the stairway in the middle of the forest or Mel's Hole or something along those lines, do you think there's a lot of truth to these legends out there? Because the stories have to come from somewhere. Sure, they may be a little bit exaggerated, but the stories have to have some sort of truth to them.
Yeah, I've always said in my own experience that I really believe every legend is built on some truth, and it takes on a life of its own. Of course, if it's just the old telephone game, how it starts out as one thing and may transform completely, but there's still something that spawned this, and that's certainly could be true for a lot of cryptids, could be true for strange areas like Mel's Hole, like you say, or any other number of things. I do really believe, though, I really think, Dave, and this is a discussion for another time, probably because it's going to take a lot to really break down what I feel about this, but I think that we are profound manifestors of our experience. And that if we believe enough in something, then it does take on a reality. And then there's the whole idea of of groups of people believing in something, creating maybe some sort of egregore. An egregore is an idea that if enough people go to a place expecting to see a ghost, then even though there's no historical precedence, sooner or later the ghost appears. And there's no rhyme or reason why, because the actual story was fiction, but enough people believed it that it became real. And so, like Myrtle's Plantation, there's allegedly no historical precedent for any of the legends there, but people will swear all up and down that they've had experiences that correlate to those legends. And maybe it's some sort of egregore or self-manifestation. It's hard to say.
I always wonder, when it comes to the legends, I want to believe. I totally want to believe. Like, there's a First Nations legend around here that up on one of the mountains by the reservation, there is a town of little people.
Oh.
And you can only drive so far. And then when you get to the top where you can no longer drive anymore, you have to ask the Great Spirit grizzly bear permission to continue on the trail to the little people city. And then if he gives you permission, so you have to be clear of heart, mind, body, soul, You have to be, you know, in the right frame of mind and peaceful and loving. Then he will let you pass. If he doesn't let you pass, you don't get to go to the city.
Mm,
Things like that, I love.
yeah.
I love stories like that, and I love following them because you just never know. And I always, you know, a lot of people have critiqued me for this, but I always try to find belief in First Nations stories.
Yes. Yes.
Those are stories that have been passed on for multi generations, hundreds of years, if not thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be something to that.
Yeah. And I would say that's certainly for First Nations stories, I would give them a whole lot of credence, because these are people that had a verbal tradition forever, and these stories were handed down for reasons. And those wisdoms can't, even though maybe some of that is symbolic, you still I think it's foolish to discard that kind of stuff. I think the First Nations peoples that were here long before any of our European selves came, they knew these lands. They knew some lands were blessed. They knew some lands were cursed. They knew which places to go and which places to stay away from. And they knew where the forest people were and where they shouldn't go. And all of these wisdoms were never regarded by the settlers and the people that, came in and decided this was ours and built the nations on them. But these people were in touch with the world and participated on such a beautiful level with the world around them. They knew the world around them. And now, rather than listen to any of those wisdoms, like, oh, look at that view, there should be condos there. It's like, no, that's the cursed land. Well, bet you there's going to be condos.
Brent Thomas, thanks for coming on Spaced Out Radio, the Paranormal podcast, where we say hello to Mr. Ron Bubblewood Ball. Ron in the background with his brother is watching. Bubblewood is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up, the guitar, God himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, Space Travelers Club, and on X, hashtag Spaced Out Radio.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
we own the night. Mr. Bubblewood, we need a favor. We need you to take us home.
I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Yes, the Moon Train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we got room for them. Good night, everybody. That was good shit right there. Good stuff.
I guess I quit talking
Already
just at the
calling
right.
for 1 more hour. She's like, 1 more hour.
I'm glad I stopped talking when I did. I didn't realize. Oh God, you were probably doing the helicopter thing a bunch.
No, I hadn't started yet. I had a feeling.
Okay,
I had a feeling.
that was a blast, brother. Thanks a lot for having me on.
No problem, my man. That was a lot of fun.
Oh,
A lot of fun.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, man. Took us forever to meet, but look what happened now.
Yeah, brother. I mean, when do you record or do you go live?
Well, the podcast is pre-recorded, but I do live shows Wednesday, Friday, Saturday night at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
I do a Saturday.
You do a Saturday? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's sort that out and figure it out. Well, you'll have to, I don't know how to email you directly or or how to sort this? Do I do it through your booking guy? Or
No,
what?
man. Just hit me up on Facebook Messenger.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll dial it in. Get you over on the portal.
Yeah, man.
Put you in the hot seat.
Yeah. Yeah, we can do that. That works for me. Yeah. I'm following your page.
God bless you. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was
There
a lot
we
of fun, though, man. I really had a good time talking with you.
Dude, it was spectacular. It
Uh-huh.
was a very one thing I liked about it, dude. It was a very natural conversation.
Yes. Yeah, it was. It was my favoriteest kind.
Yeah. Yeah, it's when you can have a good smooth conversation, the time means nothing.
Yeah, it went so quick. I swear we
Bombshell Bomber, you've never sent me your address again, and I'll send you my jacket and a t-shirt. I promised her my jacket and a t-shirt like 5 years ago.
You can have my address, Dave.
Yeah, what a good host I am.
No, I'm just saying, if you're throwing shirts out, I'd support some Spaced Out Radio.
I'll get you something.
I know you would. Likewise, give me your address. I'll send you one too.
Give me a couple weeks because I'm in the process right now. I've legalized everything with SOR.
Oh, nice.
And made a true company.
Okay.
I had one before, but I've kind of made some changes since then. So I'm in the process of just getting my tax numbers, and then I gotta go and then I have to go and get all my my YouTube and my store and everything switched over to my to my new business.
Okay.
So once I do that, then I can get in there and we'll get you some swag. That's for sure.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah, man. All right, my friend, I got to get to work here and get this show ready for our stations and everything. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, man. Stay in touch and we'll get you on the portal.
Hit me up on Facebook. I added you.
Okay, brother. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you, everybody.
To everybody else out there, thank you tonight to T-Bone ×2, Android, Michelle ×3, Adam, and Lenda for the super chats. I'm going to call it the night here because my sinuses are starting to get sore from being sick. But tomorrow night on the show, Jason Offutt will join us to talk about cryptids all night long. We're going to have some fun with Jason. He's a great guy. Hasn't been on in a few years. You guys all take care. We'll see you tomorrow night, same time.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.